The first thing that hit me was the sun, and it hit like it had a personal grudge. Then the smell of salt. Then the fact that the floor under me was moving, rocking, actually. Gently, left and right, the way office chairs absolutely do not. I opened my eyes and I was sitting on a wooden raft the size of a parking space, holding a fishing rod, surrounded by ocean in every direction until the planet curved. 1 second ago, I was asleep on my desk. I'm Moo Yoon Shun, 24, and I just spent 3 months working overtime on the project of my life. No days off, 4 hours of sleep a night. The finish line was 1 week away, and the plan was simple: collect the bonus, go home, hug my grandparents, sleep for a year. The universe looked at that plan and said, how about a raft instead? A giant screen unfolded in the sky like the world's worst PowerPoint. Cheerful voice, bullet points. Welcome to Survival at Sea, District 33. Rule 1. Death here is real death. You get exactly 1 life. Rule 2. Everyone aged 18 to 50 is in the game. The kids and the elderly stay home and get taken care of. Rule 3. Everybody starts with the same gear. 1 raft, 1 fishing rod. Supplies float by in the sea. Chests appear at random. Fish them out. Do not go in the water. Do not drink the seawater. You have a 7-day newbie protection period. Use it, because after that, things get brutal. Have fun, players. The screen shrank into a ray of light and became a watch on my wrist. Blue strap, silver dial, 1 golden button. I pressed it and got my own personal menu, resizable from cinema screen down to tablet. There was a beginner's guide and something called Area Chat. 100,000 people in District 33 alone. I opened the chat and it was exactly what you'd expect from 100,000 office workers waking up on rafts. Help! I can't see anyone. I'm scared of water. Is this a game? It's so realistic. Don't treat it like a game. It says, death is real. One guy announced he didn't believe any of it. He could swim. He was going in to check. His message ended in glug glug. A minute later, somebody noticed the population counter. 99,999. The chat went very quiet, then very loud. I closed it. I had read enough survival novels in university to know minute 1 is for inventory, not for screaming. My raft was 2 meters by 2 meters, small enough that rolling over in your sleep counted as a water sport. The rod was thick, with a huge hard hook and no bait. Okay, fine. Cool. Very cool. Love that for me. And then my luck arrived. A beep and a voice that clearly wasn't part of the sky screen system. Suitable host found. Binding survival system. Maritime game detected. Integrating. Host's living environment rated. Abnormally harsh. Seedling protection plan activated. Drawing a starter item. 10, 9, 8. A giant colorful wheel spun in front of me like I'd won a mall raffle. It stopped and something dropped out of the sky. I caught it on reflex. A white wooden token, palm-sized, carved with a pink peach blossom and 4 characters. Peach Blossom Paradise. I put it down in front of me, said yes to the prompt, and the token vanished. The raft glowed faintly gold. I took 1 step forward and the ocean disappeared. I was standing in a space about 10 square meters wide, wrapped in white mist, soft, damp soil underfoot, pink petals drifting down from nowhere. In the center stood the token, now 10 times bigger, glowing. I touched it. Gold light sprinkled onto me, and my whole body woke up like I'd had real coffee for the first time in 3 months. Congratulations, host. Today's random blessing, double happiness. All resources received today are doubled. Doubled. Everything I get today, times 2. I stood in my private pocket dimension, a workaholic who had just been handed a cheat, and did the math out loud. A random blessing. Today's random blessing. Meaning tomorrow there'd be a different one. Meaning this place was a daily slot machine bolted to a garden. I thought a word I won't repeat, and it was a happy one. Getting out took 1 thought. Back on the raft, a wooden crate was floating past, right on cue, and the system chirped that treasure chests could be hooked with the fishing rod. I cast the rod like I knew what I was doing, and the hook snapped onto the crate like a magnet. Dragged it over, hauled it up. Inside, 1 bottle of mineral water, 1 bag of cream buns, 1 can of 8 treasure porridge. The crate has been opened. Double good fortune. You have received 2 of everything. And there it was. The box refilled itself in front of my eyes. Water, buns, porridge, mirrored like the box had a conscience about portion sizes. I drank half a bottle right there in the sun and ate porridge while scrolling the chat, where the mood had progressed from panic to unboxing videos. Somebody fished out crackers. Somebody got a bunch of tattered plastic and threw it away in disgust. Somebody got an empty box and threw that away too. Threw it away. I looked at my own empty crate. Solid wood, planks, nails, probably. In a world where the only shop is the ocean's random drops, these people were throwing away lumber because it didn't come with a snack inside. The second crate I hooked had 5 pieces of wood in it, doubled to 10, and the moment wood touched my inventory, a grayed out menu button lit up, expansion, and a second prompt. This crate can be dismantled into 3 wood and 3 nails. So that was the lock. You need wood in hand before the game admits that boxes are made of wood. A quest popped up. Expand your raft to 10 square meters. Reward, a basket of strawberries and 2 steamed buns. The system had figured out my love language, which is groceries. 10 wood and 10 nails per square meter. I had nowhere near enough, but I knew who did. 100,000 hungry people who thought empty boxes were trash. I posted in area chat. 1 cream bun for 2 empty boxes. Message me. The listing worked like witchcraft, because it turned out item links in this chat came with a full 3D preview, and my cream bun rotated slowly in 100,000 feeds. Golden crust, soft glow, faint milky aroma included. Yes, aroma. The chat could transmit smell. Whoever built this game understood cruelty on a deep, artisanal level. The reactions split instantly down the middle. My mouth is watering. It looks so fluffy. Can I buy on credit? And then the other camp. 2 whole boxes for 1 tiny bun. Mu Yun Shan, have you no shame? Exactly. What a swindler. That thing is gone in 2 bites. A stranger came to my defense without being hired. What are you keeping an empty box for? A summer home? Food saves lives. Wood holds rainwater. Do the math. I didn't argue with anyone. Arguing with customers is free advertising for your competitors, and I didn't have competitors yet. The first private message was from the day's celebrity. Jin Wanru, the girl who'd fished 5 crates before noon and announced it with fireworks. Mu Yun Shan, I have 4 empty boxes. Can I get 2 buns? I love mini bread rolls the most, and honestly, the boxes are crowding my raft. I keep tripping on them. We traded. Double Happiness looked at her 4 boxes and quietly made them 8, and I stood on my 4 square meters surrounded by a shipping warehouse, genuinely worried the raft would tip over from prosperity. I dismantled them fast, and the system counted along with me like a slot machine paying out. 3 wood and 3 nails per box. Doubled, doubled, doubled. Behind her came the rest of the queue. A man traded 2 boxes and immediately messaged asking what I needed them for, fishing for the secret. A woman sent 1 box and a long story about her blood sugar. Somebody named Chen Jin Hai, remember the abs guy, offered to sing for a bun. I declined with the block button. I'll be honest, when 8 crates materialized on my 4 square meter raft, I got scared it would capsize from pure greed. I dismantled them on the spot. 48 wood, 48 nails. Built 5 new raft sections in one go. Traded more buns for more boxes. Built again. By afternoon, my raft was 12 square meters, and the quest paid out, doubled, and I was eating strawberries on my new veranda while the chat argued about whether I was a genius or a war criminal. Then, Jin Wanru, sweet soul, posted a public service announcement. Hey everyone, boxes can be dismantled into wood. That's how you expand your raft. The chat collectively remembered every empty box it had ever thrown into the sea. The wailing was biblical. Somebody typed, has everyone forgotten the first person collecting empty boxes was Mu Yun Shan? She gave 1 tiny bun for 2 boxes. What a swindler. And somebody named Su Shu replied, oh please, if you'd known first, you'd have been worse than her. Willing buyer, willing seller. I didn't know Shu Shu yet. I just noted that District 33 contained at least 1 other person with a merchant's soul, and made a mental note to never buy anything from him. By sunset, I had a wooden pavilion for shade, and the build menu had unlocked a workbench, which needed iron, so I sold water. Yes, in a district dying of thirst, I sold my doubled water for iron blocks, and the chat called me a despicable profiteer, and the people who got water called me a savior, and both were correct. That evening, the trades got interesting, starting with the moment I tried to buy iron off Jin Wanru, and she refused me for the first and last time in her life. I can't, she said, genuinely miserable about it. I only need 2 more blocks and I can build a workbench myself. I have the blueprint for a seawater filter, and with a workbench I can make my own water forever. A seawater filter. The machine that turns the ocean into a tap. I sat up so fast the raft wobbled. And then I did something I'm not proud of and would absolutely do again. I offered her a deal no sane person accepts. Give me the blueprint and the iron just to look at. 1 minute, everything straight back, plus half a bottle of water for the trouble. Collateral available, strawberries, porridge, anything. I even played the trust card. Wanru, I'm a girl too, I wouldn't lie to you, which was technically its own lie, a lie about lying, very efficient. Silence on her end. Then, okay, but add me as a friend first. I want to look at you. Turns out looking at me was literal. The video connected and a round-faced girl with bangs and freckles filled my screen, and the moment she saw me, she short-circuited on air. Wow. Wow. Yunshan, you're so beautiful. You're gorgeous and cool at the same time. How is that allowed? Your ponytail, not a single stray hair. I've been told I'm decent looking before. I have never been reviewed like a scenic viewpoint. This girl, I learned over the next few minutes, ran entirely on aesthetics, no other operating system installed. She'd spent the whole day donating supplies to anyone with cheekbones, including the abs guy Chen Jin Hai, who had danced her out of her last half bottle of water. She'd rated him 8 out of 10. She stared at me a while longer, clenched her little fist, coughed, and announced, "You seem like a good person. I trust you. No collateral needed. 10 out of 10. My bone structure had just secured a business loan. The trade window opened. Filter blueprint, 3 iron blocks. And my system purred. Double good fortune. Received, 2 seawater filter blueprints, 6 iron blocks. The cheat duplicated blueprints. Blueprints. Information doubled, like it was no different from porridge. I sat very still while my entire understanding of my own net worth restructured itself, then handed her originals back with the face of a nun, and told her yes, funny thing, I compared them against the filter blueprint I already had. Identical. What are the odds? She believed me instantly, then spun her camera to give me a proud tour of her 6-square-meter raft, spotted my wooden pavilion in my background mid-sentence, and produced a noise like a kettle reaching a pinion. A house! Yunshan has a house with benches. Even the heavens love a beautiful face. I ended the call as gently as one climbs out of a ball pit. Was the blueprint trick shameless? A little, but I squared it within the week. Iron, gauze, her own filter assembled free while she watched, and a standing friendship she'd turn out to deserve more than most of the pretty faces she collected. The alternative was dying politely, and my grandmother didn't raise polite corpses. That night I built the workbench and both filters, traded scraps for a wooden bed with pink rose bedding, and lay on it under the stars while an entire district slept on bare planks. Around midnight, the chat was still awake. Hungry people watch chat the way hungry people window shop. And Wanru was in there running a free tutorial for strangers. Everyone, expand to 10 squares. Unlock the workbench. Look for filter blueprints. The nicest person in the district, handing out for free the information I'd have sold. We were going to balance each other out beautifully. Day 1, closed. The overtime queen had found a game with visible progress bars, doubled loot, and no meetings. I slept like a woman with a secret garden, because I had one, and before bed I checked it. The paradise had grown from 10 square meters to 100, apparently scaling with my raft. Time inside ran twice as fast. I planted strawberry seeds I'd dried in the afternoon sun, watered them with mineral water, and the system approved. Growth cycle 12 days. Here, it's 6. First planting bonus, 1 packet of scallion seeds, a farm, a luck engine, and 99,000 potential customers. I dare you to find a better game for a workaholic. Day 2 opened with the paradise handing me great fortune, best luck of the day, better and rarer drops. And before you ask the obvious question, yes, I tested the obvious exploit. Hoard crates on bad days, open them on blessed ones. Doesn't work. A crate's contents lock to the luck of the day it drifted to you. The blessing only touches what the sea brings fresh. My casino pays out daily or not at all, which is exactly the kind of house rule a casino writes. Anyway, day 2 also opened with the district's other merchant taking his first real swing at me. My filters had worked all night, and I'd shouted in chat for empty bottles to store the output. Susu's message arrived with the confidence of a man who thinks he's found a hostage situation. You're collecting water, right? I have a 2.5-liter plastic bucket, 30 wood or equivalent food. 30 wood for 1 bucket. Yesterday's exchange rate said a whole crate broke down into 3. This man wanted 10 crates of lumber for a container he'd fished out by accident, and he wanted it from me specifically because he'd calculated I was rich. So I quoted him back, 1 wood, 1 bucket, final offer. His reply was 3 dots of pure suffering. Then, girl, don't joke around. Then, it's negotiable. I left him on negotiable and opened the crate that changed the math forever. A blueprint for 4-liter plastic buckets, craftable from the exact plastic scraps people had spent yesterday throwing into the sea as garbage. I posted a buy order for plastic, cheap, casual. The chat had a group meltdown about why the crazy bun lady wanted trash. One camp warning, don't sell. If she wants it, it's valuable. The other camp screaming, just sell, eat today, be smart tomorrow. Zuzu private messaged me faster than either camp could finish typing. You can make buckets now, can't you? I told him yes, 4-liter ones, 60 wood each. Would he like to place an order? The silence from his end had actual texture to it. Then he started buying my plastic listings under an alt, which I only knew because he was terrible at hiding it, and I sold to him anyway, because a good rival is worth keeping fed. That man was watching me, noted, filed under useful. The morning also delivered a small fishing net blueprint, catch fish and shrimp while you sleep, 20 plastic and a rope, and I set it off the raft's edge and felt, for the first time since the sky screen, like a woman with passive income. And then the chat handed me something better than loot. There was a man named Fang Peng who'd been begging since hour 1. Big guy, 35, and the district had decided he was the resident nuisance. He and ABS boy Chen Jin Hai were the 2 channel tyrants, one begging with dance routines, one begging with a flat, exhausted persistence that read as laziness if you weren't looking closely. The district wasn't looking closely. Useless beggar. Channel polluter. Worse than a woman, one charmer wrote. People friended him just to insult him in private with extra bandwidth, gave him hope, called him trash, blocked him. By day 2, the chat was cheerfully speculating that he'd died and relieved about the bandwidth. And something itched at me. I pulled up his profile, and his face stopped me. Square jaw, thick brows, honest eyes gone hollow. He looked like my high school math teacher, the kind of face that keeps its word or dies trying. A man with that face, begging for 2 days straight, isn't lazy. Something's broken, and nobody's asked what. I messaged him. Are you sick? Not sick, he said. My rod came broken, no hook at all. I couldn't fish anything out, so I went into the water to grab a crate, and a shark took a bite out of my leg. 2 days, no food, no water. I'm not lazy, I just can't find a way to live, and if I die... My wife died in a car crash. My son is 5. I asked to see the rod. He traded it to me instantly, the whole rod, like a man handing over his last chess piece because keeping it made no difference anymore. The workbench said it could be repaired for 1 piece of wood. 1 piece of wood. That's what was killing him. I fixed it, sent it back with a steamed bun and a bottle of water, and he sat there on his raft, this mountain of a man, saying thank you like the word was too small. Then he made a promise nobody asked him for. Everything I catch from now on, unless I need it to survive, is yours. I want to be clear, I didn't save him for the dividend. I saved him because I checked first that he was worth saving, which is not the same as kindness, but it's what I had in stock. An hour later, he sent me plastic and boxes with a note. You needed these, so you get them first. And he kept doing it, all day. This man had a 5-year-old waiting in another world, a shark scar on his calf, and the debt collection habits of a saint. The net went into the water, and by evening it handed me its first catch. 3 sea bass, a silver cod, a squid, all alive and indignant in my new holding box, and Fang Peng fished out a brass key that opened my 1 locked crate. An iron stove blueprint, 10 packs of instant noodles, a 2.5-kilo bag of rice. A stove, a pot, rice. Somewhere between the fishing rod and here, I'd quietly crossed the line from surviving into homemaking. The stove needed fuel, and here's where the district's supply chain became a sitcom. I had coal briquettes from Fang Peng. I had a lighter, gifted by the system for crafting the stove. What I lacked was 1 dry twig to bridge lighter and briquette, and I, owner of 2 water filters and a private dimension, stood on my raft for a full minute, defeated by kindling, until Wanru sent a twig and Fang Peng sent another, and my first fire caught, and the first pot of water in District 33 history came to a boil. Wanru got the first hot water because she'd video called me clutching her stomach, 2 days of cold water on a delicate constitution. And when she saw the steam rise off my little pink pot, her whole face did something complicated. She drank half a bottle of it slowly, like wine, and insisted on paying me a full bottle of mineral water for it because, and I quote, hot water is precious, cold water is just wet. Then I cooked. Braised beef noodles, the good pack, extra vegetable packet, and here's the thing about this game's chat that you need to understand for the next part. Pictures come with aroma. Post your dinner, and 100,000 starving people can smell it. I didn't post my dinner. I was raised better than that, and also quieter than that. I just sent a boiling hot box of it to Fong Peng, who was planning to spend his evening eating nothing and watching other people's crackers for entertainment. The man had literally described watching food chat as a satisfying show. And Fong Peng, trying to save the picture as a keepsake of the first hot meal of his second life, fat-fingered it into the public channel. One steaming, beef-loaded noodle box. Broadcast, with smell, to a district eating cold buns in the dark. The chat produced sounds I can only describe as grief. Slurping noises typed out letter by letter. A man reported drinking his cold water while smelling the broth and crying into the bottle. Somebody's steamed bun, quote, suddenly stopped smelling like anything. And then the detectives arrived. Wait, that's Fong Peng. The dead guy? He's alive? He's alive and eating better than us? And Fong Peng, honest to the marrow, wet-eyed, typed the truth into 100,000 feeds. My benefactor saved me. She fixed my rod, gave me food and water. In my heart, she is a fairy, a girl. The channel lost its mind. Fairy, look at me. I haven't drunk water in 2 days either. Me too, fairy. Why do fairies only save quiet, handsome widowers? I messaged Fong Peng one word, anonymity, and he went silent mid-sentence and stayed silent under interrogation for the rest of the night, a captured soldier with noodle broth on his chin. Meanwhile, the noodle economy found me anyway. First Shu Shu, the bucket extortionist, whose entire negotiating posture collapsed the moment he learned I could boil water. He opened with an apology so oily you could fry with it, then played his ace, a locked wooden crate, gifted, free, no strings, which is merchant for all strings. I took it, we opened video, and the man on screen surprised me. Tall, buzz-cut, honest teeth, more soldier than shark. He demonstrated his family's martial art by tapping a log with his palm and turning it into kindling. Strength 15, born that way, family of masters. Then his sister Shu Mei slid into my messages with the eternal words of her people. I heard you have strawberries. Her offer for 1 box of noodles and 1 strawberry was a spear blueprint, a weapon for fruit. Shu Shu cheerfully advised me to rip her off harder next time. She's the family foodie. Weapons grow on trees where we come from. I fed them both and filed the whole family under keep. I checked my status panel that night. Strength 4, Agility 6, Constitution 4. In a world that had just added sharks, my character sheet said, accountant. I checked my status panel that night. Strength 4, Agility 6, Constitution 4. In a world that had just added sharks, my character sheet said, accountant. That seemed like a problem for future me. Present me had a district to supply. By midnight, I'd expanded to 30 square meters, unlocked axes, pickaxes, and spears at the workbench, learned that space stones plus floral cloth made a storage backpack, and gotten my first taste of what the sky screen system thought about my pace. Reach 100 square meters, it teased, for the next surprise. Day 3. The paradise gave me good luck galore. Chopping, mining, and gathering can crit for multiplied rewards. Which was perfectly timed because the previous evening the horizon had grown a bump, an island. The system politely explained, islands carry far more resources, don't miss it. Also, be off it by sunset because at night the sea swallows islands whole. That's not me being poetic, the island literally sinks. To reach it, I had to solve parking. The workbench sold me an anchor for 6 iron blocks and a set of oars I'd probably never row. I chained the raft to a shoreline rock, and the moment my shoe touched sand, the sky screen went off like a game show. Congratulations to Mu Yun Shan, first player in the region to land on an island. Reward, 1 fully automatic shower cabin, to be delivered shortly. I'd been sweating in the same clothes for 3 days. A shower cabin. I'd have fought a shark for it barehanded. And when it arrived that evening, it exceeded the fantasy. 2 meters of white pod with a porcelain tub inside, buttons for temperature, massage, whirlpool, a pedal bath option I have never once been emotionally stable enough to press, hot water from nowhere, forever. The delivery came with a catch dressed as a gift, The system offered bonus loungewear and towels if I let it announce my prize to the district. I'm a private person. I'm also a person who was down to one set of underwear. The announcement ran 3 times in bold red letters. The district exploded with island fever, and I folded my new pajamas with the serene dignity of a sellout. The island itself was rocks, iron fir trees, a dark cave I did not enter on day 1 because I'm not a horror movie extra, scattered coal, and a quest hiding in plain sight. And thanks to good luck galore, island life ran like a rigged casino. First tree I chopped, half an hour of work with my arms screaming, because it turns out axes are a strength stat wearing a handle. Crit, times 10, 100 wood in one falling trunk. I nearly cried into the sawdust, flushed 2 pheasants out of the tall grass, robbed their nests of 16 eggs, and when the prettier one wedged itself into a hole with its tail feathers sticking out, presenting its entire backside to the food chain, I threw my spear on pure reflex. 10 dressed chickens and 100 feathers, another crit. Found wild watermelons on a mound, stems withered, dead ripe, 3 of them, each the size of my torso. The eggs went home to the incubator. The feathers had a future I didn't know about yet. The melons, you already know, became a lumberyard. Then I found the coal mine, and the coal mine found me back. 10 meters in, something silver black and basketball-sized shot past my ankle. A rat. A rat with a boss health bar, guarding a wooden chest in a side hole. It bit my ankle on the second pass, and I made a decision that defined the rest of my career in this game. I do not trade fair hits with anything that has more stat points than me. I went outside, cut tough grass, and wove a net. My grandfather taught me that, back when I was small, and he caught sparrows and field mice behind the house. I set the net, baited it with a cream bun, hid behind a rock, and waited with the rope in my hand while my ankle throbbed. The rat circled that bun 7 times, cautious little monster. On the 8th approach, greed won. It lunged, and I dropped the net and pinned it and put the spear through it until the squealing stopped and the system rang a bell I didn't expect. World announcement. Not district. World. Player Mu Yun Shan has achieved the first Tier 1 mutant kill in the world. Rewards. Golden Wound Medicine times 3, +1 to Constitution, Strength, and Agility. 3 times in giant glowing letters across every screen on the planet's oceans. The wound medicine closed my ankle bite in minutes, which was worth the whole trip by itself. What I didn't know, and wouldn't learn until much later, was what that announcement did 2 districts over. In District 34, 2 big men had been 30 seconds away from finishing off a wild boar and taking that world first for themselves. They read my name off the sky, learned I was a 24-year-old woman, and one of them said, "After the servers merge, kill her." Somewhere out there, my biggest headache had just written my name down. At that exact moment, I was busy prying open the rat's chest, which contained ham sausages, ginger, 20 iron blocks, and blueprints for animal traps and fire pits. So in my defense, I was having a great day. District 33 took the world announcement personally, in a good way. Our nobody district was famous. The chat crowned me their pride, forgave my war profiteering, and one guy vowed to work harder so a girl wouldn't have to carry the entire region's honor, which was the most motivational insult I'd received all week. I nearly lost the whole operation to fine print, though. Sprinting for the shore at sunset, arms full of coal, I got the system notice that islands are 1-day rentals. Explore it the day you find it, because at night, the sea swallows it whole. My heart hit my shoes, half the island unexplored. And then the second notice. First player to land receives a 3-day exploration grant. The sky screen gave me a heart attack and the refund in the same breath. 3 days of private island access, a monopoly nobody else in the district even knew existed. I hauled home 260 pieces of coal, granite, clay, and a to-do list. Because the beginner's guide had a countdown on it and it ran out that night, the evening felt wrong. I sneezed, leaving the shower. By 10, my breath fogged. Then the screen forced itself open in front of every player in the district. The 3-day newbie protection ends at midnight. Temperature drops to 10 degrees. Beware of beasts targeting rafts. A wooden shelter or a fire might save you. Districts falling below 50,000 survivors will be merged. Good luck. 10 degrees doesn't sound deadly until you remember 100,000 people were sitting on wet planks over open water in summer clothes, hungry, with no fire. The chat turned into a farewell wall, people typing goodbye messages to kids who couldn't read them. A man asking his wife, somewhere in some district, to take care of the twins. I don't do despair, I do inventory. And my inventory had just unlocked something at 100 square meters, because yes, in between everything else, I'd pushed my raft to 100 squares and been rewarded with the strangest prize yet, a potted plant called a sea demon vine, gold level, unique in the world, which so far did absolutely nothing but look leafy. More importantly, 100 square meters had unlocked new workbench recipes, and one of them was the fire pit, an iron basin of burning firewood, 6 hours of warmth per load. Cost, 1 iron block, 2 wood. 1 iron and 2 wood for the thing standing between 100,000 people and hypothermia. Shushu, when he saw my first fire pit, nearly climbed through the screen. You can charge 50 iron for that. 50. I told him my price. 2 iron blocks, 8 wood. He asked if I was running a charity. I told him charity is when you don't quadruple your materials, and this was me quadrupling my materials at a price everyone could actually pay, which meant volume, which meant more totals than his gouging would ever see. He went quiet in the way of a man rethinking his religion. What followed was the longest night of my life, and I once did a 72-hour crunch with 2 client demos in it. The first hour was pricing psychology. I couldn't just announce 2 iron fire pits. Half the district had bought pits from me at blueprint and seed prices an hour earlier, and a public discount stampedes your early buyers into a grudge. So I made a speech. I have read your messages. I know times are hard. I know without fire, many of you won't see morning, and I've been agonizing over what's fair to my earlier customers versus what everyone can afford. Truly, I'm in a difficult position. The chat filled with people reassuring me while freezing to death. Then I announced the price, like a mercy. My grandmother haggles like this at vegetable markets. It's a family art form. Then it was an assembly line until dawn. I crafted, Susu collected payments, lit each pit at his own stove and delivered. 5% cut. And when his queue backed up past 100 orders, Wanru and Fang Peng came online as branch offices on the same terms. My workbench clanged in the dark like a shipyard. Batch of 30, another batch of 30. Somewhere in hour 2, my hands stopped being cold because I couldn't feel them, and the payments piled up faster than I could sort them. Wood, iron, blueprints, seeds, a hornbow recipe, a potted grapevine, barbecue seasoning, salt, whatever people had, priced by desperation. A 50-year-old man named Sundong Liang with bronchitis traded me his most precious thing, an egg incubator, coughing out an apology for having hoarded it so long. I set my pheasant eggs in it that same night, inside the paradise where time ran double, and made a note to overpay him someday when he wasn't watching. There were hecklers, because there are always hecklers. 2 customers spent 20 minutes berating my delivery speed, half an hour in a queue, unacceptable, do you even know how to run a business? And got buried by my other customers before I could type a word. She's not running a business, she's running disaster relief, one wrote. Another suggested I raise prices specifically so the loud ones couldn't afford it. I wanted on record that I considered it. Around midnight, the sharks came. The chat filled with live narration nobody wanted. Something's biting my raft. It took a whole plank. It's circling. It's back. Then patterns emerged, the way they do when enough people are dying in public. Sharks circled rafts with fire and left. Sharks chewed through small rafts but lost interest past 10 squares. Shushu compiled it like a scientist mid-battle, 10 square meters and a light, and you'll likely see morning. And Wanru reposted it every few minutes with encouragements, and my pits stopped being a heating product and became the difference between a raft that got circled and a raft that got eaten. Not everyone saw morning. When the sun came up and the temperature crawled back to 20, the announcement told us 71,233 players were still alive in District 33, best count of any district, and the survivors cheered the number before doing the other math. 29,000 people in one night. The district got a +1 to all stats for surviving. Then a second announcement. Player Mu Yun Shan, top contributor of the trial, +4 to everything, and a choice of 2 support skills off a glittering menu: traps, medicine, poisons, cooking, commerce. The chat helpfully voted for cooking. I took trap making and pharmacy, one because I'd already learned that nets beat teeth, the other because in a world of teeth, medicine was going to be currency, and I'd rather mint it than buy it. The morning was gratitude with one exception, and the exception had 2 heads, the Chen brothers. Chen Haotian, 32, Chen Haoyu, 20, orphaned young, raised by the older one, martial artists both, with real skill and the combined emotional maturity of a wet firecracker. Mid-crisis, Hao Tian had pulled a fire pit blueprint from a locked box, tried to craft it, and hit a wall. Hidden requirements. No pit for you. He responded by standing in the public channel at 2 in the morning, while people died of cold, demanding I personally explain his crafting menu to him, and when I said I wasn't the game's help desk, he concluded, publicly, at volume, that I was suppressing competitors. Mid-tantrum, a cheerful rich fatty named He Jianbin wandered up to him offering a trade for that useless blueprint, so reasonable, so friendly, and Hao Tian, sulking, took the deal. The blueprint traveled from He Jianbin to Shu Shu, who quietly expanded his raft to 100 squares that same hour, unlocked the requirement, and by 3 a.m. was selling fire pits at a markup while thanking me sweetly in the channel for the inspiration. When Hao Tian understood the shape of what had happened to him, the sound he made had no consonants in it. The brothers declared eternal war on me, Shu Shu, He Jianbin, and conceptually on commerce itself. Remember them. They're going to keep walking face first into the same rake for the rest of this story, and I want you to enjoy it as much as I did. By the end of that night, I'd banked thousands of wood, hundreds of iron, and one more milestone. I upgraded my pavilion into a wooden houseboat, a proper little house with glass windows and carved eaves, first in the district. Reward, a fully automatic smart toilet. The game had decided I was its favorite home improvement influencer, and I had decided not to argue. 3 days in. From a parking space to a house with a shower, a toilet, running water, a farm dimension, and a delivery network. Somewhere in District 34, a man was sharpening a grudge with my name on it. Fair trade, honestly. I slept 3 hours and woke up because the paradise had grown again. 100 square meters had become a whole field. Time now ran 4 times faster inside, and my strawberries were a day from harvest. Apparently, my pocket dimension leveled up whenever the raft did. I stood there in the pink petal rain doing supply chain math on a magic garden, and then the day's blessing loaded in, luck soaring to the heavens. Crafted and obtained items may upgrade, repeatedly, to the maximum. I want you to understand what happened next the way I experienced it, which is, I made a completely ordinary dagger, 1 iron and 1 wood, and the workbench had a seizure. Upgrade, 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 upgrade. 4 flashes of light later, I was holding a rare grade dagger, attack plus 12, sharp enough to split a falling hair. This world ranks gear from common up through excellent, fine, perfect, then rare, legendary, epic. My starter knife had just skipped a tax bracket. I crafted everything I had blueprints for. The iron axe came out fine grade, 4 times chopping speed. Then I built a fence around the raft because the menu offered it, and the fence quest paid out 1 square meter of ordinary farmland, which upgraded and upgraded and upgraded into rare soil, plant growth times 20. I put my dried watermelon seeds in it. Estimated harvest, 36 hours. From seed. My grandparents spent whole summers on melons, and I was about to lap them before lunch. Speaking of melons, that same week I ran the sale that taught me what luxury goods do to a survival economy. My island watermelons, the ones the size of my torso, were the only fruit in a district of 100,000 people, and Shu Shu, who by then had appointed himself my unpaid marketing department, posted a slice to the channel with the caption, "So sweet, so crisp, absolutely delicious." Then he told everyone it wasn't his. He'd begged it off me for 30 wood and 30 nails, and I was, quote, "so stingy she keeps all the good things for herself," which is technically slander and functionally the best ad copy ever written. Within the hour, a rich glutton named He Jianbin, yes, the same one, this is how he enters my life properly, paid the full 30 and 30 for 1/8 of a melon and reviewed it in chat like a food critic at a funeral for his own diet. A dozen more buyers lined up behind him. By evening, 2 melons had converted themselves into 320 wood and 360 nails, my expansion fund, and the district had learned a rule I never wrote down. Whatever Mu Yunshan is eating, that's the good stuff. The morning's crate coughed up a bottle of golden plant nutrient solution. Top grade, matures almost any plant instantly, expires in 24 hours. I looked around for the most expensive plant I owned, and my eyes landed on the sea demon vine, the useless gold-ranked houseplant, sitting in its pot doing its one trick, which was photosynthesis. Unique in the world, the system had said. Fine, down the hatch. The vine drank the whole bottle and detonated. Branches shot out in every direction, up the fence, over the windows, across the roof ridge, 10 meters a second, until my entire raft was wrapped in green. Then buds. Then flowers, hundreds of them, in every color at once, like a wedding had crashed into a paint store. And then a little girl's voice said, "Isn't it pretty?" I did the dignified thing and nearly went overboard. Her name, she informed me, was Xiao Ling. She was 3 years old. She could bloom any color I wanted. Look, red, green, purple, blue, and my raft strobed through the rainbow while I begged her to stop before somebody sailed over to investigate the disco. We settled on purple and pink, which I sold to her as princess colors, and she cheered and settled in as the single most useful crew member I would ever recruit. A sentient, raft-sized security system with a sweet tooth for praise. That afternoon, I went back to the island for round 2 and came home with a bruised rib area and 100 pieces of beef because I decided to hunt a wild bull with a strength stat of 9. Correction, 2 wild bulls. I'd learned from a tip that horn bows needed bullhorn and bull sinew, and I wanted a ranged weapon, and the only way to a bow led through a creature the size of a minivan. So I did what I do. I dug a pit, set the spiked trap from my new skill inside it, smeared the spikes with juice from a plant literally named horse intoxicating grass, and baited the ground with sweet potatoes I dug up an hour before. The plan worked flawlessly, in the sense that a second bull showed up, stole the first bull's potato, and they started a duel over my bait while I sat in a tree like a horrified referee. Bull number 1 fell into my trap by accident, mid-argument. Bull number 2 spotted me, took my thrown axe across the neck, and spent the next 10 minutes trying to headbutt my tree into the ocean while I clung to the top going full maraca. It rammed the trunk so hard I nearly threw up. So I jumped, rolled, sprinted a lap around the meadow with a half-ton of angry beef behind me, and led it straight over the pit. It went in. It even climbed back out because this game's animals don't respect physics, but by then the sedative had it swaying like a Friday night uncle, and it lay down next to the trap and went quiet. 2 bulls. 3 intact horns, 2 sinews, 100 cuts of bread, hides, bones. I sat on the grass shaking, with my hands too weak to close, and grinned like an idiot. Back home, the system announced the future. In a few days, on day 10, every player in the district would be teleported to one huge desert island for something called the Desert Island Hunt. Rich resources, ferocious beasts, and, quote, cunning players. Top 10 scorers get generous rewards. Cunning players. On day 10, murder became a scoring category. The chat read that announcement the same way I did, and the district started speed dating for squads. The Chen brothers posted their stats like a personals ad and announced they only wanted strong men, no trash, no women. A girl named Cui Xuying, who mentioned she was skilled in archery, got sneered at until she blocked them both. I got 2 private messages inside a minute. Xu Shu's said, together? Jinwan Ru's said, Yunshan, team up? I picked Xu Shu, and I felt bad about it for exactly 1 second, because Jinwan Ru was the kind of teammate who would hand her rations to a photogenic stranger mid-battle. Into Xu Shu's group came his sister Xu Mei, and, on my recommendation, Fang Peng, whose stats made the martial arts siblings do a double take. Strength 16, Constitution 17. The quiet widower was built like a load-bearing wall. We named the squad the Assault Team because Xu Mei typed it before anyone could stop her. My own numbers were the worst in the squad, which bothered me for about a day, until the peaches happened. Second bottle of golden nutrient dropped from a crate that evening. The vine was on cooldown, so I walked into the paradise, looked at the one tree that had been blooming since day 1 without ever fruiting, and poured the whole bottle on the peach tree's roots. The petals stopped falling. Fruits swelled from fingernail to fist in seconds, blushing red. 25 fat peaches. I picked one, washed it, bit in, and it was the best peach of my life, which was almost beside the point because the system chimed, mysterious peach consumed, plus 1 freely allocatable attribute point. Stat fruit. My tree grew stat fruit. The catch revealed itself over the next 2 days. 3 points was the cap per person. Peaches had to be eaten within a day of picking, and unpicked fruit just waited on the branch. 25 servings of pure power, ripening in my private dimension. The reveal I timed for maximum damage, because Chen Hao Chen had spent that evening flooding the channel with his newest treasure, an apple that had raised his constitution by 1, framing it as proof that heaven backed his hunt for me. He was mid-sermon, quote, Mu Yunshan is just a weak woman who got lucky with supplies, when I posted, with no caption, the item card for 2 mysterious peaches, plus 1 attribute point each, freely allocatable, next to his fixed stat apple, like a sports car parked next to a mule. The channel did the comparison out loud for several minutes. Hao Tian private messaged me a price demand, then a magnanimous offer of forgiveness if I'd share, and I blocked him mid-sentence, and he spent the rest of the night announcing to the channel that I'd blocked him, which is the online equivalent of shouting through someone's mail slot. I fed a peach to Fang Peng without explanation, watched the quiet man try to refuse fruit worth a warehouse, and dangled the rest unpurchasable, forever, a museum of things Chen Haotian would never have. My grandmother says don't play with your food. My grandmother never had enemies this entertaining. I also finally dealt with my one real weakness. The horn bow came out of the workbench top grade, perfect quality, thanks to another lucky crafting day, a gorgeous thing that disguised itself matte black off the bench. One problem. I shot like a girl who'd spent her 20s in spreadsheets. My first arrow missed a stationary target and assassinated the ocean. So I hired the archery champion. Cui Shuying, the woman the Zhangs had laughed out of their recruitment thread, turned out to be a national-level coach with a simple price, 1 cut of beef per day. She warned me honestly that archery needs a 100-meter range and years of practice. I built her a 200-meter shooting lane off the back of my raft overnight, 2,000 wood, don't ask, and she went quiet on the video call for a long moment, the way people do when they're resorting which rumors about me were exaggerated. She drilled me like a soldier. Stance first, open stance, right foot forward, then grip, knock, anchor, aim, release, again, 4 hours before she let me touch an actual arrow. When I finally shot, the first one grazed the target's edge, and she said, again, in the voice of a woman who has said, again, 10,000 times professionally, and the second one hit the gold, and she allowed herself one nod, which from her was a parade. 10-hour days after that. She crammed what she called 3 days of instruction into each one, apologizing that the situation was special, and on the second evening, she casually mentioned that back in training camp, they'd practiced until their fingers bled, so I should be grateful. And I looked at my fingers, and I was not grateful. Day 2, she showed up at 7 in the morning, having eaten her beef wage the night before, sliced thin and grilled plain, and discovered it was the best meat of her life, which converted her from hired coach into zealot. That day's session ran to 7 in the evening with 1 half-hour lunch, and she apologized for the pace. It's a critical period. We trained harder at camp, and threw in unpaid physical conditioning because my draw arm offended her professionally. By day 3, I could put 3 arrows downrange fast enough that they argued with each other, and she watched the last volley, said, "You have talent," in the tone of a woman confessing something embarrassing, and billed me 1 additional piece of beef. There was one hiccup. Mid-lesson, her camera caught a smear of pink and green behind me, my flowering vine, my farmland. And I watched this hawk-eyed professional markswoman visibly decide, in real time, that she'd been training too hard and hallucinating agriculture. She even muttered something about her eyesight declining without meat. I fixed the camera angle after that. Some cards you don't show even to people you like. And her beef wages started a war I swear I didn't plan. Her cousin, Cui Ruyun, was a specific kind of person, the kind who takes up archery because her cousin got praised for it, quits when it's hard, and then steals the cousin's fiancé as a consolation trophy, and spends years spiking every family dinner with it. The ocean hadn't changed her, just shrunk her stage. That evening, she messaged Xiaoying a photo spread. "Look, little sister, grilled fish, hot-baked bun. Your brother-in-law caught it just for me. Poor you, all alone." Xiaoying didn't answer. Xiaoying was, at that moment, sitting in front of the dinner I'd sent as her bonus. Braised chicken pieces, stir-fried squid, steamed cod under ginger threads, shrimp with greens, white rice, 2 strawberries on top, on actual porcelain. She quietly moved her fire pit into frame for warm lighting, photographed the table like a professional, and sent back 1 line. "No thanks, I couldn't possibly finish mine." I'm told Cui Ruyun's scream was audible over open water. She demanded to know who Xiaoying had robbed. She sent the photo to her stolen fiancé, Sun Peng, who examined it like a detective, correctly deduced the only person in the district with oil, seasonings, and squid was me, and got very quiet in a way that would matter later. Then, Ruyun, in her infinite talent, reposted my private dinner to the entire district channel with a caption about how suspicious it was, which backfired into the single best restaurant review in history. 100,000 people smelling braised chicken at once. Chen Haotian's proud instant noodle dinner post, 5 consecutive messages of it, died on the vine mid-flex. Volunteers lined up to be my trash can. 2 people claimed to be my long-lost siblings within a minute of each other. The chat had become a nature documentary about envy, and I was the watering hole. 2 more things happened before the hunt, and both of them mattered more than they looked. First, the summoning order. A girl named Zhao Jingfei pulled a 1-use item that can summon a friend to your side for 24 hours. The only way in this game, then, for 2 players to actually stand next to each other, which made it worth more than any weapon the moment squads existed. She auctioned it in the open channel, and the auction turned into a hostage negotiation because the Chen brothers wanted it for their hunt logistics and bid like it, a mountain of wood and nails and blueprints, and then started threatening the other bidders by name, and then threatened her. Chen Haotian's actual closing argument, verbatim, hand it over cheap and join our team, or I'll hunt you to the ends of the island. The seller. He threatened the seller. This man could not buy lunch without creating a blood feud. Zhao Jingfei stalled him, sorry, stomach hurts, lying down. And I read those 3 words next to her profile, 24, female, and did the math on a girl having the worst week of the month alone on a wet raft, in the cold, being screamed at by armed men, and I opened a private line and asked one question. Cramps? The reply had the texture of someone trying not to cry at a stranger's kindness. My bid? A full pack of sanitary pads, sized for the whole week. Hot ginger and brown sugar tea, brewed fresh, refills promised. A lit fire pit with days of firewood. A clean, warm tracksuit, fresh underwear, socks. On paper, a fraction of the Jiang's pile. She traded me the order before I'd finished listing it, and drank the ginger tea in a porcelain bowl I told her to keep warm by the fire, and cried into it, and told me giving me the order was the best decision she'd made at sea. Chen Haotian demanded to see what had outbid him, and she refused, partly to spite him, partly because half of it was underwear, and he raged so publicly about losing to a mystery bid that when the truth leaked, the district named him the summoning clown, and it stuck to him like tar. Value is personal. Merchants who don't know that die poor, and clowns die single. Second, golden wound medicine, and the day I became a pharmacy. Chen Haoyu got his ankle chewed by a wild boar on an island run, the brothers' first island, entered at sunset with the greed of men who'd learned nothing. The wound was going bad, and Hao Tian, who had spent the week publicly rehearsing my funeral, came to the channel not to apologize, but to open negotiations. Name your price, I might forgive you. I posted my medicine's description with 1 line of commentary. If I don't give it to you, you deserve the limp. And let the district enjoy the spectacle of a proud man discovering what leverage means. Then I sold the dose to He Jianbin instead, at the exact moment Hao Tian's groveling peaked, because He Jianbin's injured teammate, a man skilled in traditional medicine, had gathered the precise herbs my recipe called for, and his offer was a medicine crafting station blueprint plus a full set of ingredients. One trade. I built the crafting station, brewed his dose, kept the process, and turned every future herb bundle into triple output, becoming the merged district's only pharmacist. The Jiangs did eventually get their medicine, through He Jianbin, at He Jianbin's markup, which meant I profited off their emergency twice, once in goods and once in dignity. Petty and profitable. My grandmother would have been proud of exactly half of that, and I've never told her which half. And then the game invented reality television. Announcement. The first quality of life competition, districts 31 through 40, roughly 800,000 players. Submit up to 3 photos of your living conditions. Everyone votes. Top prize, 5 plots of top-grade land. You may hide your name and district. The Paradise system slid me a private quest the same hour. Brew tea around a stove with friends at night. Reward, 2 plots of rare soil. And separately whispered, hide your name in that competition, or regret it. When your cheat engine gives you PR advice, you take it. We built a tea room on the raft that evening, the whole squad summoned over, and it turned into the best night since the sky screen. Everyone fell into a role nobody assigned. Shu Shu carved a signboard, tea room, in genuinely beautiful calligraphy, because apparently martial arts families also install penmanship. Fang Peng set the little clay stove dead center of the table with a stonemason's precision. Xiao Ling wound flowers up the pillars, pink and purple, arranging herself like a professional decorator who works for compliments. Xu Mei roasted sunflower seeds in 2 flavors and narrated the process like a cooking show. And Bao Bao tried to climb onto a bench 11 times, failed 11 times, and got lifted up by whoever was closest, which became the evening's heartbeat, a panda thudding softly against furniture at regular intervals. Then we did the ancient thing. Tea leaves into white porcelain, real black tea from the monkey quest, steam curling up. Sweet potatoes and chestnuts roasting around the stove's edge, shells cracking, red lanterns. Yes, I'd been pulling red lanterns out of crates all week. 8 pairs, don't ask me why the ocean had a lantern surplus, swinging above black water. And 4 people, who 3 weeks ago were strangers on a drowning planet, sat around a fire talking nostalgia until midnight. Xu Mei asked if we could do this weekly. Shushu said, only if the district didn't kill us first. Fang Peng said, in full, this is nice. From him, a toast. I photographed the table from above. Steam, teacups, a scatter of shells, 2 hands in frame and no faces, one of them Shu Mei's, a detail that would matter more than the whole rest of the frame. Titled it, Welcoming Tea Around the Stove at Night. Hid my name, hid my district, posted it, and went back to my tea. By then, a work called Yelan Wine is Exhausted was sitting in first place, also anonymous. Wine and meat and a sofa. Campaign voted to the top by what was clearly an organized block from District 34. And here, the story picks up. 2 people I hadn't met. The first was Xu Fen of District 34, cousin to my Xu Xu and Xu Mei, a woman with real influence over there and a very specific hatred. The second was the author of that first place entry, Wu Liang. Remember the man who wrote my name down after I stole his world first kill? Him. Orphaned young, taken in by Xu Fen's family, assessed by her parents as clever, ruthless, and unsafe, and proven right when he used her 2 teenage cousins as shields on an island run and returned them crippled. In District 34, he played the public saint, savior of the cold night, benefactor of the weak, and half the district worshipped him. Xu Fen knew the receipts. She'd been scrolling the competition for hours, looking for any entry good enough to knock him off the top, out of pure spite, may it be blessed. At entry number 503, ranked below people photographing piles of planks, she found a quiet overhead shot of a tea table. She didn't know it was mine. She just told District 34 it was her friend's work, and pushed. My entry went from 500th to 200th to the top 10 in an afternoon, riding the votes of strangers who thought a warm table beat a wine cellar. Wu Liang watched his lead melt and played the card he'd been saving, a cross-district chat ticket, 1 private conversation with any named player anywhere. He spent it on Chen Haotian. I know, out of 800,000 people, he chose the district clown as his secret agent, purely because Haotian's comment section meltdowns had leaked his district. The plan was genuinely clever, though. Haotian whispered through District 33 that Yelan Wine is Exhausted was secretly my entry. Vote for our girl, keep it quiet, she's shy. Thousands of my neighbors, bless every one of them, stampeded to vote for my rival's wine sofa on my behalf. I found out when Jinwan Ru congratulated me on my lovely sofa. My what? I don't own a sofa. Wan Ru, beaming, explained that everyone knew, the whole district had been whispering it for half an hour. Vote for Yunshan's entry, but keep it secret. She'd be embarrassed. She'd voted. Her friends had voted. Her friends' friends had voted. My district's love, harvested with a pitchfork by a stranger. I denied it 3 times in public, in increasingly large font, and asked everyone to pull their votes. The district, realizing it had been played, did something better than obedience. Votes in this competition couldn't be withdrawn, only moved, so 100,000 insulted neighbors looked for somewhere to move them, and He Jianbin helpfully suggested second place, which happened to be a certain anonymous tea table, purely, he said, to knock that lying wine drinker down a peg. My rival's own scam campaign delivered me his voters by the cartload. Watching the leaderboard that last hour was better than television. Wu Liang clawed back into first with a late surge, 20,000 votes from somewhere. So I went digging in his entry's comment section and found, buried under curated praise, 1 fatal message. Haha, District 33 takes first again, his whisper network, leaking. Then the countdown pressure cooked him, and with minutes left, he did the thing that clever people do exactly once in their careers. He panicked in public. Vote for me and collect 5 wood, he announced. Then 10 wood. And every person who'd voted for him for free, out of gratitude for his cold night heroics, read that price list and understood their loyalty had a market rate, and it was lower than the new customers. Where's my 10 wood? The invoices began. You owe me 5 from the first batch. I'm switching my vote until paid. His total went down while he was paying it to go up. There's a business school lecture in there somewhere, delivered by a drowning man. He finished 11th. 11th pays nothing. He had spent treasure, reputation, and a one-of-a-kind cross-district card to place 1 spot below the payout line, and Xu Fen, who I'm told laughed for a solid minute, sent him a single line. Heaven has eyes. First place, welcoming tea around the stove at night. 5 plots of top-grade land, plus my hidden quest's 2 rare soils, and the quest chimed complete the moment the results posted, which told me something I filed away. My little survival system and the big sky screen game were not always different departments. I gave 3 of the 5 plots to my squad because they'd earned it and because an investment in those 4 was safer than any warehouse. And in the comments under my entry, a small miracle, Shu Fun, studying the winning photo out of curiosity, recognized a scar on one of the anonymous hands holding a teacup. A training scar. A family scar. Her cousin Shu Mei's finger. 2 branches of a scattered martial arts family found each other again, mid-apocalypse, through a photograph of my table. And if you think I didn't get a little misty watching them type at each other, you've misjudged this narrator. Wu Liang learned my name for the 2nd time that night. This time, he learned it as the anonymous nobody who'd beaten him with tea. The night before the hunt, I laid my gear out on the bed like a soldier, like a bride, like a maniac. Rare dagger, perfect hornbow, 50 poisoned arrows. High-grade soft whip from a secret manual I'd traded for, 12 forms of it drilled into my arms. Black scale leather armor from a python I'd killed guarding an herb, plus 3 agility. Spiked traps. 4 doses of golden wound medicine and 1 rejuvenation pill, the drags you back from the brink kind, brewed from a mutant fungus I'd bled for. Bread, water, 3 peaches. A storage backpack expanded to 35 slots. 10 days ago, my inventory was a fishing rod. The Jiangs spent the evening in the chat promising to hunt me down first, waving a location card that could pinpoint any player 5 times. My squad panicked on my behalf. I opened a crate and the ocean, comedian that it is, handed me the exact same location card. See you tomorrow, boys. At 9 in the morning, day 10, the countdown hit 1. And 71,000 people vanished off their rafts. I landed on a grassy plain with a basket of strawberries in one hand and a large, furious bird under my other arm, because at the last second, my red-billed blue magpie had dive-bombed the strawberries and gotten teleported mid-theft. Oh, right, the bird. She needs her origin told properly, because she's about to matter for the rest of my life. A few days before the hunt, on the Bamboo Island trip with my squad, I'd been tracking a system quest with the least helpful description ever issued, save the injured monkey where the pears ripen. No map, no hints, when I heard a sweet little girl voice screaming abuse across a clearing. You dog, ugly freak, try touching me again. I crept up expecting a child in trouble and found a bird. A red-billed blue magpie, tier 2, growable, ruby eyes, white breast, wings of dark blue silk, a tail like a wedding train, the most beautiful creature I'd seen in either world. She was perched on a pear tree, cursing out an entire monkey troop below her in the voice of a kindergartner and the vocabulary of a dock worker. She had maybe 6 phrases, all of them slander, on rotation, and she was using them to keep a starving troop off their own pear tree while she ate the pears one by one out of pure spite. Among the monkeys, a mother held the quest, a badly injured baby, fading. So I ran the sequence that defined all my future personnel decisions. I drove the magpie off with warning arrows. She dodged the first volley, shrieking about sportsmanship, and fled, a coward to her marrow underneath all the volume. I bribed the terrified monkeys with picked pears until they let me close. I dusted the baby with wound medicine, watched it grab my ponytail with a healed little fist, and got paid by the troop itself, their patriarch dragging a hidden crate out of a tree hollow, tea seeds, fine clay, blueprints, plus the system's quest reward on top. Everyone on that island had an economy. I respect it deeply. And then the magpie came back, caught me mid-snack, and discovered strawberries. The transformation was chemical. The insult machine went silent mid-slur, drooled, actually visibly drooled from a beak, and readdressed me in the same sweet voice as Little Fairy. One strawberry made her my porter. She hauled full chicken cages down from trees for it. A running fruit tab made her my scout. And a single peach, days later, made her my future mount, a contract she agreed to without reading, because I asked mid-drool, and she'd have signed away her tail. Her name is Ching Ching now. She learns new vocabulary at terrifying speed, exclusively the worst available, tests it all on me, and is, underneath the sewage mouth and the cowardice and the greed, the bravest thing on my crew when it counts. Do not tell her any part of that sentence. So, the hunt. Everyone is both hunter and prey, said the announcement, and killing players scores more than killing beasts, because whoever designed this game wanted to see what we'd do. My squad had scattered across the island, hours away from each other, and Chen Hao Qian's location card found me before I'd finished stretching. His chat message was gleeful. "Pan Hu, she's a dozen meters from you." Pan Hu turned out to be a 1.9-meter wall of muscle who came out of the tree line like a landslide. He spotted me, laughed out loud, and reported me to his boss in real time. Found her, Hao Tian. She really was a dozen meters away. Haha. Then he rolled up on me, rubbing his hands like I was a buffet. "A little chick like you, I can handle this solo. Hao Tian says to leave you in one piece for him." We'll skip what I said back. My grandmother might hear this someday. He fought with an iron meteor hammer on a chain, and the first time it came down, the boulder next to me lost the argument. Stone chips everywhere, one of them opening a line across my wrist. He saw the red and got delighted. "Can't even take one hit." The hammer came around again, wide, whistling, and I learned 2 facts fast. 1, I could not block that. Not with a whip, not with prayer. 2, a hammer that big has a schedule. Wind up, swing, recover. Gaps you could post letters through. So I stopped being brave and started being a metronome. Whip strikes in his recovery gaps, not to hurt him, to keep his rhythm broken, backing up the whole time. And when he finally got annoyed and grabbed the whip's tip out of the air with one paw, congratulating himself loudly, I let go of it entirely and had the bow up before his balance came back. 3 arrows the burst Cui Shuying had drilled into me until my fingers cried. He batted 2 out of the air, actually batted arrows aside. The man was legitimately good. The 3rd stuck in his shoulder. And here's what he didn't know. Every arrow in my quiver had been sitting in horse-intoxicating grass juice since dawn. He roared and charged, I ran and shot, he chased and slowed, swearing at his own legs, and when he finally understood, when he grabbed the chat interface to gasp out a warning to Chen Hao Qian, "You guys, huff, Mu Yun Shan, she's..." I put arrow 5 through the message before the verb arrived. He went down mid-sentence. The district would spend an hour speculating what the end of it would have been. He was my first, a human being, not a boar. I want that on the record because everything after this point goes fast and loud, and it started with me sitting behind a rock with my ears ringing and my hands refusing to close, doing arithmetic about what I'd just subtracted from the world. I gave myself 2 minutes to be a person about it. Then the chat scrolled up Chen Hao Qian's newest post, promising a live execution of Mu Yun Shan, describing my remaining lifespan in minutes, and the arithmetic reorganized itself into something simpler. And I looted the body. 20 points. The hammer, a telescope, a bronze thumb ring plus 2 agility, with an archer's groove that fit my draw hand like it had been waiting. He'd been the muscle. The boss was coming, and the boss had a location card with 5 charges, which he thought made him a hunter, because he didn't know I'd pulled the same card from a crate the night before, and mine stayed in my pocket. That asymmetry became the whole battle plan. I let him find me, on purpose, repeatedly. I climbed a bare hill and stood on it like a lighthouse until his card burned charge 2, then strolled off and ate half a peach, which restores a full night's sleep worth of stamina, a fact I'd discovered and the pursuing party had not. Charge 3 caught the hill I'd left. By then his crew had grown, both Zhangs, plus a volunteer named Guo Hao, and that name made the entire district chat inhale at once, because Guo Hao wasn't a game villain, he was a real one. 8 victims, death row, teleported to sea before the sentence could land. He'd volunteered to avenge Pan Hu, an old colleague. The chat begged me to run. The Zhangs posted my coordinates with countdowns. 2 trained martial artists and a professional murderer speed marching through island heat after a girl who kept mailing them customer feedback. Still coming? So slow. Did you stop to cry? How you? Does your brother carry your water too? Every reply cost them more than me. Hao Tian spending his composure in all caps. You can't run forever. Me answering, from a rock, mid-snack, that I wasn't running, I was waiting, and they were late, and honestly, this was starting to feel like being stood up. The district followed the exchange like a serialized drama. He Jianbin started a betting pool. Charge 4, charge 5, gone, on a hilltop I'd already vacated. And the taunts weren't cruelty, they were logistics. Angry men don't rest, don't drink, don't think. And a man who has publicly promised your death by lunch cannot stop for lunch himself. By the time their last fix expired, they'd marched 3 hours on fury, and I'd strolled 40 minutes, eaten 2 peach halves, and finished decorating the venue. The venue was a flat clearing with 1 pine tree and 1 boulder, and by the time they arrived, it also contained 5 buried spike traps in a ring, all poisoned, camouflaged under branch litter, plus a scatter of caltrop thorn vines I'd found growing wild, because this island apparently grew area denial as a plant. And it contained an audience. He Jianbin, the round rich boy, had wandered in mid-setup with both hands raised, announcing he wasn't here to fight, he was here to, and I quote, deliver a warning, which he did by hiding behind a rock and opening a live broadcast of my ambush to the entire district. The chat, starved for entertainment, immediately started tipping him. I let him stay. Every performer needs a critic, and every trap needs a witness. Otherwise, who confirms it was fair? They arrived ugly, sweat-soaked, wheezing, Haoyu's face doing the specific purple of a 20-year-old who has discovered cardio. I was sitting at the top of the pine tree, yawning theatrically, which, for the record, was not theater. I'd had a long morning. Hao Qian pointed up at me and laughed his best villain laugh. We're here, you're dead, and Haoyu charged first, because of course he did. The man had never met a decision his legs didn't make for him. 3 arrows met him mid-charge. He was exhausted and cocky, the worst combination for dodging, and 2 connected, knee and arm, and he sat down in the grass, screaming for his brother, while He Jianbin's broadcast informed 100,000 listeners, with relish, Chen Haoyu is down. The little one folded in round 1, folks. The chat asked if he was dead. He Jianbin, professionally, not yet, but listen to that screaming. That's quality screaming. Guo Hao was a different sport. He came in low and weaving, reading the ground, and Hao Qian flanked wide with his longsword to cut my angles, and for about 30 seconds it was actually happening, the thing everyone had predicted, a girl with a bow versus 2 grown killers closing in. So I did the strategic thing. I jumped down and ran away, straight through my ring of buried traps, along the one safe lane only I could see. Guo Hao followed. The ground opened. The spike pit took his calf with a wet crunch that He Jianbin's broadcast rendered as, ooh, that's deep, and the poison started its quiet paperwork. And this is where I tell you the man was a genuine monster, because he climbed out of a poisoned spike pit, on a wrecked leg. He stood up, stepped sideways onto a caltrop vine, went back down, pulled thorns out of his own foot with his hands, and stood up, again, and came on, and grabbed my whip out of the air with both hands to disarm me, and discovered the caltrops I'd braided into its last half-meter. His palms opened like dropped groceries. He Jianbin's commentary at this point was just sound effects and the word ouch on loop, and he later posted the clip with my face blurred, a courtesy I hadn't asked for and appreciated. Even then, Guo Hao didn't run. 8 people hadn't survived him, and I understood why, watching him sway there, wrecked, dripping, still calculating angles at me. But horse-intoxicating grass doesn't respect resumes, and when his knees finally answered to me instead of him, I put an arrow in him from 6 paces and ended the district's worst man. 50 points, more than double a normal kill, the system pricing souls by their menace. His pack held a small fortune and 1 mutant fungus that would later become a 2nd rejuvenation pill, which means, in the game's own twisted accounting, the serial killer's estate would one day save a life. I choose to find that funny. The alternative is finding it something else. Chen Haotian watched his hired killer die, grabbed his little brother, and ran. I want to be able to tell you I let them go, but Haoyu had spent 10 days promising to violate my corpse, and Hao Tian had bankrolled every attempt, and this island kept score in 1 currency. I ran them down. Hao Qian carried his brother on his back, which meant every arrow I sent at him arrived at Hao Yu first. I'll let you decide whether he understood that. When Hao Yu stopped moving, Hao Qian dropped him, took an arrow in the chest, and played the card he'd been saving all along. A teleport card, gone in a flash of light. 3 kilometers. It moved him 3 whole kilometers, and he sat down to cry over the brother he'd used as a shield, and forgot I might also own a location card. I walked it in 8 minutes. He looked up mid-sob and found my spear. The chat's forensic squad reconstructed most of this from He Jianbin's broadcast, and the district's reaction taught me something about my new home. Nobody mourned. The Jiangs had spent 10 days being loud, cruel, and dumb at maximum volume, and their send-off was a meme. As for me, I looted a teleport card with 1 charge left, 40 points, and a reputation. A public service announcement went around. If you meet a female player and get ideas, check it isn't Mu Yun Shan first. The rest of the hunt, I mostly saved people, which was not charity either, it just kept being profitable. I saved Cui Shuying, my archery coach, twice in one afternoon from the same people because her family reunion was scheduled for hunting season. The first time, I walked in on a standoff, Xu Ying with a woodcutter's axe planted between a cornered He Jianbin and two archers demanding his supplies. The archers were her cousin Cui Ruyun, the fiancé thief, and Sun Peng, the stolen fiancé, who had apparently decided that in the New World, robbery was just entrepreneurship with arrows. Sun Peng tried the philosophical register on her, Xu Ying, survival of the fittest, adapt, and she asked if he was still human, and he sighed like she was the disappointment, made a show of leaving, and threw a look over his shoulder that I could read from the bushes. Ru Yun grabbed Xu Ying's arm to hold her still, cooing apologies, and Sun Peng spun with 3 arrows already leaving the string, aimed at the woman who'd taught him to shoot. My whip knocked all 3 out of the air. It made a very satisfying triple crack, like applause. What followed taught the couple some economics. I returned Sun Peng's arrows to him, from my bow, at speed, and one found his shoulder, and when they limped off, Xu Ying stopped me from finishing it. He aimed to disable, not kill, she said, so I repaid in kind. And Ru Yun's father was good to me once, I can't take his daughter. Then she borrowed my bow, and without appearing to aim, put 1 arrow through each of their ankles as they fled. Matching, like earrings. If there's ever a next time, she said, handing the bow back, no more discounts. There was a next time. It took 2 hours. They'd found a treasure chest in the interim, upgraded to an iron bow and real gear, and recruited a 3rd archer, Xu Ying's own former student, a short kid named Jin Ye, whose old team nickname the whole district was about to learn. This time, they didn't debate philosophy. They trapped her, netted her, tied her, and marched her ahead of them as a shield while they came for round 2 of He Jianbin, who screeched for me across every channel he had. The rematch went as follows. Qingqing took Jinye, and I mean took him. The boy made the mistake of shooting at her, and my beautiful, foul-mouthed bird went fully feral, ate 5 of his arrows worth of dodging, then stripped him, his dignity, and most of his shirt, chasing him over a hill, screaming his old nickname, which she'd learned from his own teammates' taunts 30 seconds earlier. Never insult anyone in front of my magpie. She takes notes. Sun Peng and I traded volleys, his iron arrows against my feathered ones, and they met in the air twice, which sounds cinematic and felt like accounting, until I stopped dueling him and broke his human shield instead, 1 whip crack across Ru Yun's cheek. She dropped everything, bow included, to clutch her face and scream about disfigurement, mid-battle, hands off her weapon in a fight over a scratch, and in the confusion, He Jianbin waddled over and cut Xu Ying's ropes, the most useful thing he did all day, and untied, Xu Ying ended the argument. She caught Sun Peng's own arrow out of his hand, reversed it through his palm, and I added one through his arm, and his archery career closed on the spot. They fled into the trees under a smoke card. We followed at a walk, because there was nowhere to go, and found the scene I still think about on quiet nights. Cui Ruoyun crouched over her crippled fiancé, who could no longer draw a bow and therefore no longer feed her, pulling my arrow out of his body and putting it back in, lower, where it counted. He died telling her that Xu Ying would never have done this. She agreed, cheerfully. Then she stripped the corpse for loot, complained aloud that he'd dropped so little, and started to leave. I shot her in the back, at 40 meters. Some things you don't release into the ecosystem. She turned around, dying, and with her last breath aimed her hate at, and I want you to appreciate this, Xu Ying, not me, the archer, her cousin, the audience. Some grudges have no relationship to cause and effect. Xu Ying stood over the 2 of them for a while. Then she gave me the throwing knife blueprint they'd all bled over, 12 blades, high grade, said thank you twice, once per rescue, and walked away from her entire family history without looking back. I checked on her later. She was fine. Some people are steel all the way through. You just don't find out until the world bends everyone else. I saved He Jianbin twice, once from that same crew, once from his own curiosity, and in the process met his bodyguard, business partner, whatever, a silent man named Han Xuan, who had, at that point in the day, killed 12 hostile players, including 1 full squad of 5, alone. Cold face, long knife, no small talk. The chat called him a monster. He called it Tuesday. And he came with the single strangest stat I've ever encountered, which will matter later, so file it away. Han Xuan's luck was cursed. Every chest the man opened personally produced garbage. Not bad loot, garbage. Broken bottles, torn paper, one memorable half of a brick. He Jianbin opened all chests for both of them, and in exchange Han Xuan carried the violence. It was the most functional marriage in the district, and I got adopted. In a wheat field, by something the size of a teacup dog. The field itself was a find, wild, high-yield wheat, ears twice normal size, gold to the horizon, and I was harvesting it with an axe like a barbarian when something nudged my ankle and went, in the tiniest voice ever issued, meh, a newborn lamb. Snow White, wobbling on day-old legs, horn buds like pearl buttons, and eyes. I need you to take this seriously. Eyes like cut emeralds, green as glass with light behind it, blinking up at me while it strained its whole neck toward a wheat ear it couldn't reach. I fed it soft green ears until it swayed, bent the tall stalks down to lamb height for later, sternly explained that a murder festival was no place for a baby, left it 2 strawberries as severance, and walked away doing breathing exercises about it. An hour later, a troop of Tier 2 mutant golden-eyed monkeys had me pinned against a rock guarding a banana grove I'd been too curious about. 5 directions at once, faster than my whip could cycle, claws opening my sleeve, one dropping at my head from above, and my hand was actually on my escape card when a white blur crossed the clearing and hit the airborne monkey like a cannonball, bouncing it off a tree trunk into next week. The teacup lamb. It had followed me. It scattered the entire troop in 30 seconds, day-old legs launching it 3 meters up, tiny head cracking mutants off their feet, and when the last monkey fled screaming, it trotted over, wobbling with exhaustion, and nuzzled my hand for a strawberry. I picked it up. It fell asleep against my collarbone before I'd finished standing, and that was that. The paperwork of my heart was signed. Later, when it complained aloud that crossing the island on foot was slow, the lamb lifted its head, went meh once at the landscape, and a full-grown, long-eared white sheep sprinted out of nowhere and knelt. My stray had summoned me a carriage. I rode a kneeling sheep across a battlefield with a sleeping lamb in my arms, and somewhere behind my sternum filed the first suspicion that this baby outranked everything on the local food chain, up to and including me. Even a Tier 2 black goat we met later took one look at the tiny passenger in my arms and left the area at a dead run. My lamb had never met it. That's not fear you earn. That's fear you inherit. I saved Jin Wanru too, though that one hurt to watch. She'd assembled a 20-person pacifist alliance before the hunt, vetted for kindness, sworn to kill only beasts, and it dissolved exactly the way you're afraid it will, from inside. 2 of her own recruits did the math on loot versus loyalty, murdered 3 teammates who wouldn't, and when I found her, she was holding a curved blade she was too decent to aim properly, fighting both of them over the bodies, while the district's most useless man, ABS boy Chen Jinhai, whom she drafted onto her team for his face, hid behind her in a ball. Her killers explained themselves while they worked, that's the part I remember, patient, reasonable voices. If we kill you, we get your gear. Why is that so hard for you? I put an arrow in the reasonable one. Han Xuan, arriving from nowhere as usual, edited the other one out of the story mid-sentence, and Chen Jinhai fainted at the sight and had to be carried. Afterward, Wanru sat very straight, hands folded, and said quietly that she didn't even kill fish, normally. That she'd had the redhead beaten once and hesitated and lost the moment. I didn't tell her the hesitation was a flaw. I'm not sure it is. I told her to take her fainted himbo, find a hole, and stay in it until the horn. And she did, and they both lived, which by that island's standards makes it a fairy tale. Some people this world is simply not for, and the miracle is that it hadn't fixed her yet. Her father was about to enter this story specifically to keep it that way. At 9 that night, the island shrank to 1/10 of its size, everyone teleported into everyone's lap, and the real festival started. But I had an appointment, because in Kuei Ruyun's loot, I'd found a bead labeled Treasure Hunting Pearl, usable after 9. It lit up like a little moon, floated off my palm, and led me north along a dark stream, glowing just enough to make me visible to every predator on the island, which produced one unforgettable encounter with a teenage girl digging a hiding hole in the bank, who looked up, saw a human being approaching lit from within, and asked in a shaking voice whether I knew I glowed when I walked. She couldn't see the pearl at all, just the aura. I am, somewhere in that girl's memoirs, a luminous ghost that drifted by on the worst night of her life and politely kept going. The pearl led me an hour upstream to a patch of land sitting midstream where no land should be, made me swim for it, then bounced up and down over a spot of dirt until I dug, through soil, through a layer of blue stone brick, underground, on a temporary island, into a buried cellar complex with torch-black corridors and room after empty room. I set spike traps across 2 doorways as I went, out of pure habit, and habit turned out to be the whole battle plan, because the treasure's guardian was a Tier 3 giant frog, a meter of warty muscle with a tongue like a grappling hook and a war cry that could deafen a lighthouse. Its back shrugged off my whip like applause. Its belly, I learned by accident, did not, and its brain had exactly one setting, forward, so I ran it in circles through my own doorways until it landed in a trap belly first, screaming at a volume I will hear at my funeral, and an arrow through the eye ended the concert. 120 points. The system was paying me to be rude to amphibians. Behind it, the prize, a chest inlaid with glowing pearls and a guardian projection standing on the lid. A dwarf, 1 meter of beard and grievance, hammer bigger than himself, hollering on loop. Who dares touch Dadu's treasure chest? Who dares touch Dadu's treasure chest? A recording, I decided. I tested it. Didn't react to thrown rocks, didn't track my movement, just looped its little tantrum at the empty air. A scarecrow with a beard. So I walked past it and opened the chest, and the game paid me the most valuable 30 seconds of my life. 3 elixirs, red, purple, yellow, each 2 permanent points, constitution, strength, agility, swallowed on the spot before the universe could change its mind. A pet bag, 3 padded slots where living companions ride in comfort, and 300 hunt points, more than my entire body count combined, for 1 act of burglary. And the recording's eyes moved. "It's you!" the dwarf screamed, and somewhere in the world something with legs started running toward me. I will now summarize my relationship with the dwarf Dadu, because it's about to become a recurring feature of my biography. He is a real being, not a program, master craftsman, patriarch of 13 sons and uncountable grandsons, hoarder of the game's best treasures, faster than a horse, strong enough to throw his hammer over a tree line, and I have robbed him, at time of writing, 3 times. That night was the first, and the chase deserves its details. I ran with his chest in my bag through a midnight island while a voice like a landslide closed from behind. "You took Babu's treasure! I'm going to kill you!" And the wildlife evacuated ahead of him like he was weather. I burned Chen Haoqian's looted teleport card to open a gap, and the ocean's sense of humor gave me the same roll it gave Haoqian, 3 kilometers, barely a head start against something with those legs. He closed it in under an hour, navigating by pure grudge. I went up the tallest tree I could find, dense crown, no sightlines, textbook. He found the tree. At 3 minutes to midnight, I was hugging the trunk while the whole canopy shook, listening to a hammer come whistling up through the branches past my ponytail. I was mid-calculation, closing teleport versus dwarf climbing speed, when Shushu's summoning order fired and yanked me across the island mid-scream, out of the tree, out of the math, into the light of a campfire, where my squad looked up at my entrance and handed me a roast chicken leg like I'd come back from buying milk. I ate it in 4 bites. Somewhere far away, a dwarf screamed at an empty tree, and I'd like to say that's the last you'll hear of him, but you already know better. Midnight. Horn. Hunt over. 45,228 of us teleported home, 26,000 didn't. The scoreboard settlement next morning was appointment viewing, a replay ticker crawling hour by hour through the whole hunt while the district watched names rise and vanish meant what you think it meant. Guohao rode the top 5 for hours of the replay, then blinked out at the moment I remembered too well. Han Xuan's murder economy held first place for 11 straight hours of game time, steady as a mountain, Shu Shu and Fang Peng grinding along in the borderlands of the top 10. My own name wobbled around 20th, sagged as the evening hours loaded, kills stopped, and the commentators, my own district, live, wrote my obituary as a contender. She's fallen off. What was she even doing from 9 to 11? What a shame. Then the 11 p.m. entries loaded, the dungeon crawl. 300 points in 1 line item, and my name went from the 20s to the top of the board with a bang. The chat is still quoting, and Han Xuan, 11 hours a king, settled it second without comment, because commenting requires words. First place, without farming a single kill after sundown, which became its own week of forum theology. The prize was called the Invincible Set, +5 to every stat, permanent self-cleaning, dirt and water and worse simply declining to stick, minor constant healing, and, because I'd topped the board, a choice of styles. The game offered me silver general's armor, a floaty white immortal's dress with trailing sleeves, or a red denim work suit with 8 zippered pockets. 8 zippered pockets. I'm wearing the denim right now. The dress people can fight the general people about it in the comments. And yes, later, flying over the ocean on a phoenix, I did briefly regret not choosing the trailing sleeves for the aesthetic. And then I put 4 throwing knives, a peach, and a poison bottle in 4 different pockets and got over it. Second and third place got the Dauntless set, plus 3 across the board with a strength burst. 4th through 10th, the Mighty set, plus 2. And the district discovered a detail in my set's fine print that outshone the stats, the self-cleaning, and split with total sincerity into 2 camps. The fighters praising the healing effect, and everyone who'd spent 3 weeks doing laundry in seawater declaring the Clean Forever clause the single most valuable item in the game. Both camps were correct. My panel that night read Strength 18, Agility 21, Constitution 17, counting gear. 10 days earlier it had read 4, 6, 4, and the game had called my environment abnormally harsh. I looked at the numbers and heard my grandmother's voice saying what she always says, that hard work is never wasted. And I thought, Grandma, you have no idea what your granddaughter just billed for overtime. Then the announcement, too few players left, Districts 33, 34, and 35 merging tomorrow. District 34, Wu Liang's district. The saint I'd beaten with a teacup was about to become my neighbor, and neither of us knew yet how much worse it would get for him. Spoiler, so much worse. The merge went through at noon. Our counter jumped from 42,000 to just under 100,000, and the first hour was beautiful. Strangers hunting for classmates and cousins across the seam, reunions blooming in real time. The second hour was a border war, because District 34 arrived carrying its own royalty, its own grudges, and its own opinion of District 33, and the two cultures met the way in-laws meet. Someone from 34 called us arrogant. Someone from 33 pointed out that 34 no longer technically existed, having been absorbed by us, the winners. Someone escalated to regional cooking insults. It took a shiny distraction to diffuse it, and I provided one by accident, announcing the newly opened trading hall had bargains, at which point 100,000 people remembered they were shopkeepers before they were patriots. Commerce, the only true diplomacy. And somewhere in the noise, a father found his daughter, because it turned out Jin Wanru's dad was alive in District 35, and was not, as I'd assumed from her personality, a kindergarten teacher. Jin Guang, business magnate before the ocean, the kind He Jianbin described with a laugh as involved in various fields, you know, and I didn't know, and decided to keep it that way. Boss of the strongest crew in District 35 after it, 7 capable people moving as one wallet. His daughter had inherited his luck and none of his teeth. Their reunion in the public channel was accidentally broadcast, Wanru switching to the wrong channel mid-message, "Dad, I got an island token," and the district watched a feared magnate reply, gently, "Give it to Daddy, I'll gather supplies for you," and half the ocean went soft for a minute. He introduced himself to me by mail, a bag of rare millet, exactly the thing I'd spent a day hunting for my new chicks, with a receipt attached. "Thank you for taking care of Wanru. Thank you for saving her at the hunt. Ask me for anything." When one of his District 35 loyalists tried to trash talk me in the merged chat, insinuating I'd never even seen a vegetable leaf, and got flattened by half of District 33 posting screenshots of my dinners, Jin Guang didn't defend his man, didn't apologize, just watched the exchange, took notes on my market position, and adjusted his prices. A professional. We were going to get along the way 2 knives in one drawer get along, carefully and profitably. Oh, the chicks. Yes. My farm had gone multi-generational while all this happened. The pheasant eggs from the incubator hatched inside the paradise, 8 yellow puffballs, and I spent a genuinely absurd morning as livestock keeper to the apocalypse's most pampered poultry. A brooding box lined with wild grass, warm water bottles under plastic under straw, because newborn chicks need 35 degrees and my dimension runs a pleasant 27. I taught the first chick to drink by dipping its beak. The rest copied it. And Shen Xiaoran, an actual agronomist with a master's degree whom I'd befriended over soybean seeds, talked me through feed schedules like a helpline. Corn mash now, millet soon. The district's apex predator, Googling chick care mid-empire. My grandparents would have wept with pride, then taken over. The same day, the game opened the trading hall, real listings, search bar, anonymous options, price history, and District 33 discovered capitalism the way toddlers discover sugar. I listed 3 fried dough sticks as a test, 1 priced in charcoal, 1 in iron, 1 negotiable, and watched grown men bid war materiel for breakfast pastry, and the negotiable listing collect 40 messages of increasingly personal persuasion. Then I listed everything perishable I owned, took payment strictly in lumber, and quietly began stockpiling for a plan I hadn't admitted to anyone yet. And in between the big events, the ocean kept doing bits, and the best running bit was footwear. Dadu's first treasure chest had included his boots, size 47, agility +5, a genuine top-shelf item with one catastrophic flaw. They smelled like the dwarf had worn them through a swamp war and then aged them in a cheese cave. Unsellable anonymously, the smell transmitted through the listing, so I sold them to the one man in the district with feet that big, money that loose, and standards that negotiable, and He Jianbin's quest to clean them became public theater for 2 days. He posted a cleaning commission at the trading hall. The first contractor quit in half a minute, gagging. The price climbed hourly, from 50 wood to 500, while a parade of the district's hardiest scrubbed, retched, and resigned, and the chat covered it like a sporting event, and one reviewer wrote, with feeling, that the smell got stronger with washing, like it was defending itself. Finally, He Jianbin outsourced to his own muscle, and Han Xuan, a man who solves everything with strength, applied strength and tore the priceless boots clean in half. A tragedy, a farce, a setup, though nobody knew it yet, least of all me. Because the next morning, the paradise dealt me a card I'd never seen, a turn of fortune. Broken and incomplete items can be repaired at the workbench. 7 uses. I'd like the record to show I did not immediately understand I was holding a philosopher's stone. I wasted the first charge repairing a fishing axe. The second went on a crushed mineral water bottle, which came back not just whole but factory new, and my eyebrows started climbing. The third went on a feathered arrow my panda had chewed to a stub. The panda. Right, I have a panda now too, and he deserves his story told properly, because it's the one that still sits in my chest. Bao Bao came from the bamboo island I'd explored with my squad before the hunt, the same trip where I met Ching Ching. He'd found me first, a round black and white cub barely able to walk, rolled into the pit I was digging for bamboo shoots, and cried until I picked him up. He weighed about as much as a bag of rice, and had clearly decided I was furniture that dispensed strawberries. His mother found us minutes later, all rage and warning growls, and I gave him back and backed away like a sensible person, and thought that was the whole story. It wasn't. Hours later, as we were packing to leave, the cub came scrambling and rolling out of the tree line, crying in a register I hadn't heard before, and tugged my sleeve toward the bamboo. His mother was lying by the red bamboo grove, with wounds I couldn't fix. Wounds my best medicine closed for a second and then reopened. Something far above her class had come through, and she'd held it off her son. She was down to minutes. And she spent them pushing her cub toward me, again and again, with what strength was left, looking from him to me and back, until I stopped pretending not to understand and said, out loud, like an oath to a dying stranger, "I'll take care of him." She heard it. She got to the red bamboo, knocked over a stalk of the good shoots for him, a last packed lunch, and lay down. I dug her grave myself, deep so nothing would disturb her, and carried her son home against my shoulder, and he cried into my collar for a while and then, with the mercy of being very young, fell asleep. He is currently the least useful and most beloved crew member aboard, a rolling ball of fluff whose hobbies are hugging my calf, ambushing furniture, and eating my ammunition. Which brings us back to the arrow. The chewed stub came back as a rapid feather arrow, gold-tipped, flies 100 paces true, wounds that bleed and bleed, plus a groove for poison. The repair function didn't restore things, it reincarnated them. The more ruined the ith, the more ridiculous the output. And I knew a man whose entire inventory was ruined input. I messaged He Jianbin. Those torn boots, and every piece of garbage Han Xuan has ever pulled from a chest. I'll take all of it, forever, standing order. He Jianbin asked if I was starting a landfill. I said yes, a very exclusive one. That day's haul, half a broken island token, 3 cracked beads, and the boot corpses. The beads came back as enchantment orbs, plus 1 stat each to any gear, an entire economy nobody else had. The boots came back as Dadu's new boots, clean, agility 5, plus a button that released a 10-meter cloud of concentrated boot smell 3 times daily that dropped everything in range retching. I returned them to He Jianbin free. He tested the gas on a school of fish, watched them float belly up, and swore lifelong loyalty to me in a voice message that went on for 4 minutes. And the half token came back as something the game itself seemed embarrassed about, an island token, original grade. Regular island tokens, which had just started dropping district-wide, teleported you to a random island for 5 hours. Mine offered a video catalog of every island in the sea. Choose one. 15 hours. I was still deciding how to spend it when my lamb started dying. She'd been sleeping too much. Then she stopped eating, even peaches. Then Ching Ching, who fantasizes daily about roast lamb but has the survival instincts of a smoke detector, said the quiet part. It's dying. Better eat it while it's warm. And my heart did something complicated, and I started tearing the world apart. Xiaoling, wiser than her 3 years, gave me the diagnosis path. Contract her. A pet contract opens telepathy, and a lamb who can't explain her illness in bleats might explain it in words. Which is when the universe demonstrated its timing, because pet contracts had just hit the market. One single copy, auctioned in the public channel that very day by Wu Manman of Jin Guang's crew. The auction was a masterclass in selling a defect. Bidders asked about the contract's fine print, and Wu Manman demurred that she dared not open the envelope lest it activate. So sorry, surely the precautions are just feed your pet well. Suspicious. I asked pointed questions and got sweetly stonewalled while a clack of District 35 accounts shouted me down for disrupting the auction, and my instincts filed the whole scene under rigged, and I stopped bidding, and then 2 private messages arrived within a minute of each other. Jin Guang, don't bid on that contract. He Jianbin, cackling, don't touch it, there's a worm in that apple. When your rival and your gossip columnist agree, believe them. Wu Liang didn't have my sources. Wu Liang, rebuilding his saintly brand in the merged district and hungry for a headline pet, outbid everyone with a fortune in gear, teleported to an island of beast cubs to fill his new contract, and discovered, live, in front of his audience, the fine print. The tamer must exceed the pet's stats by 10 full points, meaning the district's second strongest man could contract, at best, a promising chicken. His meltdown at Wu Manman was operatic. Her defense, how could I know, I never opened it, was bulletproof, and the whole exchange taught the district 2 lessons. Read envelopes and never buy anything at auction from a company whose boss won't use the product himself. It also taught me one. Jin Guang's crew ran stings, and I should never, ever be on the wrong side of their counter. And my own answer arrived the way my answers do. That day's crates, under a fortune blessing, produced an advanced pet contract. No conditions, no stat gate, the envelope practically apologizing for the basic model's behavior. I tore it open in front of my lamb, a ring of light drifted down, and she raised her little head into it on her own, no coaxing, the way you step into something you were born owed. And a tiny voice bloomed inside my skull. Master, she said, I'm only 3 days old. I think I'm dying. I like you so much. Her name became Nuan Nuan, and her story came out in fragments as she faded. Born on an island of sheep, teleported away by her mother at hours old, mother now dead, and somewhere back home, something her mother left that could save her, if she could find a home she'd seen for one newborn day. Blue morning glories, she said, purple clover to the horizon, a palace. I had a token that showed every island in the sea. We flipped through the catalog like the world's highest stakes travel agency until her hooves shot out at a screen full of purple. Island number 1699. My cheat had been saving itself for exactly this. Island 1699 was an ocean of purple clover taller than my head, and I hacked through it for half an hour with a fading lamb in my pet bag before the local wildlife found us. Specifically, before I found 7 goats at a stream, 6 of whom fled, and 1 of whom took a look at me, walked over, and theatrically collapsed at my feet. An old goat, black and white, beard to his knees, one hind leg genuinely thorned and swollen, the rest of the performance pure cinema. He stuck the bad leg up in the air and rotated it at me like a drive-through menu. I pulled the thorn and wasted a pinch of my precious wound powder on him because a talking adjacent animal on the lamb's home island might know things, and the moment he was healed, he was up, spry as a kid, trotting off and looking back over his shoulder in the universal gesture of, "Follow me, sucker." He led me to golden pistil alfalfa, a meter-tall spirit herb crowned with one golden-hearted flower full of nectar, and that nectar, poured into Nuon Nuon's mouth, snapped her eyes open and bought us an hour of clarity. Useful, genuinely life-saving. And while I was administering it, the old fraud ate the rest of the plant, roots to petals, the rare Tier 2 herb gone down a goat at highway speed. Then he offered, magnanimously, to lead me to the second one. The second one had a guardian, a black wolf the size of a doorway, which is when I understood the whole business model. I was not being helped, I was being deployed. The goat parked himself at minimum safe distance. I fought a Tier 3 wolf with a whip and a bird, and the moment the wolf chased us off, the old man tried to sneak past all of us to eat herb number 2. I fed the wolf a different meal in the end. Arrows dressed with a poison fruit I'd found nearby, wolf fang fruit, wounds that won't close. While the goat was busy getting mauled as an unplanned decoy, an outcome I did not arrange but did watch with some serenity, I killed the wolf and dug up the entire second alfalfa for transplant. And under the wolf's den I found a silver chest which held a sheep-talking bell. Wear it and understand the speech of all sheep. On an island of sheep. The universe occasionally just hands you the right tool. The goat, 300 years old by his own sworn testimony, lied the way other creatures breathe. Over the next day, he lied about danger, lied about distances, lied about a carrot patch to try to hire me for a second heist, faked 2 more injuries, and got so predictable that Ching Ching started announcing his cons before he finished them. He also, and this took me days to admit, saved Nuon Nuon's life several times over, always with an invoice attached, and was, by a wide margin, the best company on the island. The palace, when Nuon Nuon's memory finally led us down a bluestone path through the tall clover, was rubble. A field of smashed tile and timber where her mother's hall had stood, and no blue morning glories anywhere, and my lamb stood in the middle of it, saying, in a smaller and smaller voice, that the place was right, but the home was wrong, while a gang of local lambs played hide-and-seek in her mother's bones. When she asked them, politely, to give us the space, they laughed at her. "Who are you, shrimp? This is our ruin. You won't live long anyway." I have never wanted to punt livestock so badly in my life, and I didn't have to, because a few days of blood dew later, those same lambs would kneel when she walked past. Hold that thought. The break came from the local outcast, a lamb with panda patch eyes that the others bullied for being timid and boring. The sheep-talking bell caught him warning the gang, uselessly, that the ruins were strange, and I bought his secret for the low price of teaching him a beanbag game and taking his side. He led us to a corner of the ruins paved with numbered stones, his private playground, and showed us the dance he'd invented, hopping his pattern across the numbers. And when he finished, a screen rose out of the ground, not a game screen. A different kind, plain, gray, administrative. It said, "The Shenyang Palace scene on island 1699 is temporarily closed. Enter restart password." Scene closed. Password. Words from the back office of reality. And the old goat, watching me stare at that screen, saw a market open. He sidled up and announced he possessed earth-shattering knowledge about this exact spot, available for the low price of full medical treatment in advance. I declined the terms. He lay down dramatically and invited me to let my little divine sheep die of my stubbornness. I invited Ching Ching to hold him upside down by the horns while she loudly asked me how skinning worked, a negotiation tactic I don't teach beginners, and his rate dropped to gratis with remarkable speed. What he'd seen 3 days before Nuon Nuon found me was this. 2 voices, human voices, standing in this field, discussing my lamb's mother the way engineers discuss a server. "The unicorn divine sheep's intelligence has gone too far," one said. "Out of control. Remove it. Close the scene. Set a password." The second voice worried the sheep had left a message behind. And the first said, "Don't fret. The message needs unicorn bloodline to open, and there are no more unicorn sheep in the world." Then a rumbling, and when the goat crept out at dark, the palace was rubble. He hadn't seen the speakers at all, only heard them, From a hiding spot he refused to disclose because a good hiding spot is capital. They killed her mother for being too smart, and mothballed her home like a level under maintenance. I stood in the wreckage with a dying lamb against my chest, and understood, in a cold, drop-down-the-spine way, that our sky screen had janitors, and the janitors had opinions about creatures that think too well. But they'd missed something. Nuon danced the pattern her panda-eyed cousin had invented, and her blood did the rest. The screen flickered, spat out password expired, and then, in a different register entirely, welcome home, my child. The ruins stood up. The clover rolled back like a curtain, smashed tile unsmashed itself, and stone rebuilt into a white jade palace with 3 characters over the gate, Shenyang Palace. And above them, a statue of what my teacup stray would one day become, a unicorn sheep the size of a horse, 1 great silver horn, wings spread, emerald eyes, hooves on carved clouds. Nuon stood under her mother's statue for a long, silent moment, a tiny white dot at the base of a monument, and I gave her the moment and kept the goat and the bird out, which the palace handled itself, by the way. An invisible barrier bounced ching-ching off the gate mid-barge, and she spent the next 10 minutes loudly reviewing the architecture from outside. The doors opened for the bloodline and its contract holder only. We climbed a small mountain of steps to a throne room built for 1 occupant, and there, when Nuon hugged the smaller statue on the throne, a mechanism clicked, and a white jade chest rose from beneath it. Inside, packed in rows, labeled in her mother's precise hand, day 1 through day 24, blood dew pills. The concentrated bloodline nourishment a newborn unicorn sheep needs daily for her first month, prepared in advance by a mother who knew she wouldn't be there to give it, the milk she never got to serve. Nuon took the day 1 pill from my palm and slept for half an hour and woke up leaking a faint pressure that made the air feel occupied. And 2 days later, on our way off the island, we passed the ruin lambs, the gang who'd laughed at the dying shrimp. They took 1 breath of her new aura and folded, knees first, the whole gang, wool flat, eyes down, while the bully-in-chief tossed her the confiscated beanbag back, unprompted, and the panda-eyed outcast got a royal decree that no one was to touch him again, ever, delivered by a lamb the size of a kettle in a voice like a bell. Told you to hold that thought. My baby collects her debts. The chest itself was a second inheritance. Time stops inside it. Anything stored waits unchanged. Hot food stays hot. Cut fruit never browns. And, the thought arrived in about a second and a half, picked peaches stop expiring. Her mother had left her a pantry, and incidentally handed me the keys to the stat fruit economy. A vault where 22 servings of raw power could now wait for the right buyer or the right emergency. I stood in a dead queen's throne room doing commodity math and had the grace to feel slightly bad about it. Slightly. We didn't leave the island quietly because I am physically incapable of it. The old goat, once Nuon was stable, immediately tried to cash in his goodwill. He knew where a great treasure lay, the greatest on the island. He'd merely been waiting 300 years for a partner with, his words, my special qualities, by which he meant expendability. The trailhead was a cave he'd found behind a rockfall, and the moment I stepped in, my system pinged the 2 words that function in my life as both alarm and dinner bell. Dadu's treasure. Him again. The second stash of the dwarf I'd already robbed once. At this point, refusing would have been rude. The raid went sideways in every direction at once. The visible treasure chest, sitting in an open cavern like bait, because it was bait, turned out to be a phantom that dissolved when my throne rock sailed through it, and the floor it guarded turned out to be a lid over an endless supply of cat-sized rats that came boiling up in waves. We fought a rodent tide backward out of the cave, Nuon bowling them in strikes, Ching raking them in passes, the goat stomping with sudden suspicious competence, me spearing anything that got past, and when the flood finally ran dry, the cavern held nothing at all, swept clean. Which is when Nuon's ears found the hollow behind a suspiciously new section of wall, and I mined through a meter of stone into the real complex below. Stairs, a descending passage, and a great hall with a silver chest glowing on a stone table. Dadu had learned from our first date. This one had security. The hall's ceiling was upholstered in bats, hundreds of them, venomous, and the moment my arrow tinked off the chest, the lights died and the air turned into wings. What saved us was paranoid architecture, mine. Before touching anything, I'd walled the hall's exit down to a doorway and stacked it with firewood, so when the swarm came, it came through a burning bottleneck, one squadron at a time, into arrows, claws, and a very motivated sheep. Ching Ching, naturally, ignored the choke point, dove into the open swarm screaming about disrespect, and emerged victorious and bald, tail feathers gone, wings chewed, a phoenix bloodline waddling around the deck of the world looking like an angry, plucked hen. She was still declaring victory when the last bat dropped. I love her more than most humans. The chest, at the bottom of a bat-guarded, rat-flooded, phantom-decoyed vault, held treasure worth every feather. 3 vials of golden beast spirit liquid, permanent double evolution for any beast, and 3 temporary evolution pills, a locked box bonus courtesy of a key looted en route. And the moment my hand closed on it, the vault's true alarm went off, the one that lives in Dadu's chest and screams across islands. He arrived at a dead sprint while we fled over land, faster than anything that shape has a right to be, and his hammer, thrown from beyond bowshot, caught the old goat across the hindquarters as we scattered. I hauled him out of the impact zone with my whip and a teleport charge, and the goat died in the grass an hour later, and I want to put his exit on record, because the old fraud earned it. He'd caught his vial of spirit liquid when I threw it, and then he didn't drink it. He lay there with the greatest treasure of his 300 years held in his teeth, the thing he'd schemed decades for, and set it down in front of me. Wasted on me now, he said, matter of fact, the way he'd priced everything his whole life. Then he ran his last con, except it wasn't one. He made me promise to deliver the vial, someday, to his godson. Some faraway creature, island unknown, species unspecified, that he described with his remaining breaths as having a rotten personality, a compulsive lying problem, and a face you'd want to slap. Truly his heir. When I pointed out I had no way to find an unnamed liar on an unnamed island, he cracked half his own horn off against a rock, pushed it to me, said the godson would know it, and told me to just carry it and let fate handle logistics. Fate being a colleague he'd swindled successfully for 3 centuries. Then, as a tip for my services, he gave me one last piece of intelligence, the location of a treasure on another island, filed away for a braver week. Then he apologized, roughly, in the direction of Nuan Nuan, for whatever he'd been planning to run on her mother back when her mother was alive. Then he thanked me, which I'd have bet the ship he'd never done sincerely in his life, and stopped. Ching Ching hovered over him for a while, uncharacteristically silent, then said, quietly, for once with no audience in mind, the old man never paid me back for the beard incident, which, from her, was a eulogy. I buried him deep, next to a clover patch, the way I'd buried a panda before him, because that's apparently my role in this ocean, gravedigger to the magnificent. 300 years of scams, and at the end, the only honest transaction he ever ran was on himself. The horn is in my pack. Fate, whenever you're ready. The 2 remaining vials went into Ching Ching and Nuan Nuan on the spot because Dadu was still coming and I wanted my escorts upgraded. My pets stopped being pets. Ching Ching doubled in size mid-cheer, wingspan 2 meters, tail like an aurora, claws upgraded to legal weapons. Nuan Nuan hit tier 3 and grew horn and skills, a charge that breaks ribs, hearing that catches whispers across an island, and the beginnings of invisibility. The dwarf got one last swing at us, and I'll give him this. When he's angry enough, he grows, actual size, up past the treetops, a phenomenon the system summarized as, "What are you waiting for? Run!" Oh, right, don't bother, you can't escape. We escaped, on the island's own timer, teleported home at the buzzer with his roar still in the air, and I spent the boatless hours of that week converting enemies into furniture. Wu Liang first. The islands had started appearing more often, and he'd island hopped once too greedily and gotten himself and Panda pinned in a cave by a wolf pack, tiers 2 and 3, a whole family of them patrolling outside while he typed increasingly moist requests into the trade channel. He needed a teleport card tonight or the wolves collected. And it just so happened that the only teleport card for sale in 3 merged districts was mine. 1 charge used, 1 left. The option was hosted by Wu Man, Jinguang's sharpest lieutenant, who owed Wu Liang a grudge and me a favor, a combination that shaped the bidding in ways economists would call irregular. Wu Liang bid boots, necklaces, fruit. Denied, not as valuable as Mu Yunshan's offer. He bid an advanced weapon blueprint on top, a genuine treasure, and the chat gasped, and Wu Man examined it and announced, with the serenity of a museum curator, that she still preferred my 2 peaches. The district erupted, arguing about her math. There was no math. There was a phone call from Jin Guang, who knew who'd saved his daughter. Wu Liang, sweating in a cave, finally slapped down his real asset, the advanced pet contract he'd been scammed with, unconditional except for the tamer strength clause, useless to him, priceless to a woman whose pet problem was consent paperwork, not combat. Sold. To the anonymous straw buyer, who was me, a fact he learned in the worst way, later, at leisure. Wu Liang financed my Phoenix contract with the card that saved his life. I feel it's important he never learned the full shape of it, so let's keep it between us and 100,000 viewers. Because yes, that's the contract Ching got. She resisted the concept on principle. I'm a free bird. I don't need a master. Right up until Nuan explained that contracts came with power, and peaches came with contracts, at which point my free bird flew through the glowing ring before I finished the offer. Her file opened to me the moment it sealed. Red-billed blue magpie, Azure Phoenix bloodline. My garbage-mouthed strawberry thief is a proto-phoenix, a mount of immortals in training, and when I fed her the temporary evolution pill that same night, she grew to a wingspan of 7 meters, glowing like a sunset with opinions, and I climbed on, and we flew. Actually flew, over a black ocean under stars, my whole ridiculous kingdom shrinking to a lantern dot below. She ruined the moment at altitude by asking why I was so heavy. I ruined it back by telling her the truth, which is that she was simply weak. We argued at 500 feet like a married couple, and it was the best night of my life to that point. The pill wore off in 20 minutes, and she spent the next 12 hours as a wobbly, furious puffball demanding compensation peaches. Worth it. All of it. Then came Wu Liang's counterattack, revenge via rumor. The card Mu Yunshan sold was dead. 0 charges, a scam, pass it on. His mistake was delegating the smear to Pan Da, a henchman with the cognitive throughput of a damp sponge, who genuinely believed it because he'd used the card himself in a panic, teleported 3 kilometers from one cave into an identical cave, noticed nothing, and concluded the card had simply flashed and failed. Sincere stupidity is unfalsifiable, which made him the perfect mouthpiece and the perfect mark. So I bet him, publicly, 2,000 wood and 2,000 nails against the same, that the card had worked. Wu Liang tried frantically to call it off. Let's all move on. Why so petty? And Pan Da, insulted on my behalf of all things, took the bet over his boss's dead keyboard. Then I produced the exhibit, an actual spent teleport card from my own pocket, gray, inert, labeled by the system itself with, and I quote its exact text, "What are you looking at? This card is used up. It's only good for propping up a table." Next to the description of the glossy, prompting, white-flashing card Pan Da had used, the story collapsed in real time. You could watch the gears turn in his head, live, in text. Wait, the cave was different. There was a puddle. The ceiling was higher. Boss, were we teleported? The district howled. Wu Liang paid, through Pan Da, in full, in public, because his saint persona couldn't survive a welched bet, and every plank of it went straight into my expansion fund. And the system chimed on top. First wager complete. Reward, 1 partial raft rating rules table. My survival system had quietly issued me a quest days earlier, win 2 bets in a week, and was now paying me in the exact currency the whole district was about to go to war over. Which brings us to why I'd been stockpiling lumber like a paranoid beaver. Because the announcement had finally dropped, the one that reorganized my entire life around a number. It came stapled to the worst news of the game so far. The second batch of players was coming. Everyone left on Earth. The kids, the elderly, everyone's parents, everyone's babies, dumped into this ocean in 7 days. The chat broke. People who'd survived sharks and murderers without blinking typed through tears about 3-year-olds on rafts. And then, the game, having shown us the stick, priced the carrot. A raft rating system, effective immediately. Rating over 100, you may build 1 interdimensional portal and summon 1 blood relative directly to your raft. Over 500, 2 portals. Over 1,200, 3. I needed 3. My grandfather, my grandmother, my 5-year-old nephew, the whole surviving stock of my family, because my brother and his wife had died in a plane crash a month before the ocean, and those 3 people were the reason I'd been working myself into the ground in the first place. My rating, after 2 weeks of empire building, 56. Highest in the district, nowhere near. The rules table from the bet got me started. Living room over 50 squares, plus 20, mahogany furniture sets, beds, benches, all worth points, and I clawed to 100 within a day, then sold the tip itself for blueprints because information depreciates and I wanted full value before the district figured it out. But the curve got brutal fast. 100 points of progress here, 6 points there. At this rate, I'd have 1 portal by the deadline and 2 empty ones. And then the game sent us the builders. Announcement. Master Architect Jiwo and his 49 disciples are traveling the sea. Treat them well or flee immediately. They may teach you profound building techniques. They may also dismantle your raft to splinters. Each has a different temperament. How they treat you depends on how you treat them. What followed was a week of the funniest reality show ever broadcast. A fleet of NPC contractors drifting between rafts like 50 little gods of home renovation, each with a hidden trigger. The chat learned by sacrifice. One disciple, G23, turned out to be an adorable 6-year-old girl with a chainsaw bigger than herself and a body count of demolished rafts in the dozens. She bored with a dimpled smile, tear your home to matchsticks without a word, and leave. Players started fleeing their own rafts when her little boat appeared. Another pair, G8 and G9, were a married couple who roamed the sea loudly arguing about each other's exes, and their taught skills, we learn, included such masterpieces as bad luck possession, your building curses its owner, and shoddy work, double materials, half quality. The game had put 50 personality tests on boats and armed them. I did my homework instead. When little G49, the youngest disciple, a shy dumpling of a boy, fled from Ching Ching mid-visit, she chased him down and stole his homework, an actual school essay titled My Beloved Master. It was a complete walkthrough. Master Jiwo is old and forgets everything within minutes. He's red-green colorblind, loves yellow and blue, vegetarian, likes his food aggressively salty, loves smiling faces. And one secret only I know. He wishes someone would call him Lao Han, like a friend, but no one has ever dared. I memorized it like an exam. And then the master himself set out, and the game turned it into a live event, broadcasting his itinerary like typhoon coverage, and the itinerary was a comedy in itself. Master Jiwo has begun his journey. Master Jiwo has encountered a storm and paused to rest. Master Jiwo has encountered a volcanic eruption and paused to rest. The district, refreshing the feed like sports fans, split between worshipping him and muttering that the old man dodged every hazard by napping, then apologizing to the feed in case he could read it. People bathed, people rehearsed greetings. One man posted that he had changed into his cleanest clothes and would be waiting by the roadside, which on the open ocean meant standing on his raft slightly straighter. And then the game dropped exactly 1 invitation card on 1 random player, the right to summon the master directly. Wu Liang got it. Of course Wu Liang got it. He announced it like a coronation, then announced he wouldn't use it yet. A master deserves proper preparations, and spent hours cleaning his raft while his lackey Pan Da led the district in a hymn to his luck. What Wu Liang was actually waiting on was the card's own status line, which kept telling him the master was asleep. What Wu Liang did not have was a wind direction control card, one of those useless-looking crate drops I never throw away. When Jiwo's little boat wandered near my raft, I did not need an invitation. I needed 10 minutes of favorable wind, a banner, and nerve. Xiaoling spelled out, "Welcome Xiaoji" across the roof in yellow flowers on blue leaves. I waved like an old friend. The white-bearded grandpa lit up like a festival, hopped aboard, and the district-wide broadcast announced that Master Jiwo had boarded the raft of Mu Yun Shan, and somewhere across the water, Wu Liang's invitation card informed him the master was busy. Hosting Jiwo was a sport, and I trained for it like one. The Dear Adventurer script ran on rails. "What's your name, lovely adventurer? May I look around?" Then he ate a small orchard of my fruit, sunflower seeds, bananas, oranges, patted a belly already shaped like a temple bell, squinted at the sun, and asked, with the sweetness of a child requesting a bedtime story, whether he might have lunch here. The man had just eaten his body weight in produce. I said, of course, Lao Han, and cooked him what the essay prescribed. 4 vegetarian dishes and a soup, everything green, everything salted like a shipwreck. He ate every grain of rice in the pot. And then he toured my raft, nodding, chuckling, humming, and teaching absolutely nothing. I asked what he thought of my houseboat. He nodded. My tea room? Chuckled. Any advice, honored master? A benevolent smile with the informational content of fog. We orbited the deck so many times I got dizzy, and I was starting to panic calculate the cost of a fourth dish when the essay's real lesson finally surfaced in my memory. He didn't want a hostess. Everyone bowed at him. He wanted a friend, and friends are rude. So I stopped in his path, planted my hands on my hips, and told the most revered craftsman on the ocean, Lao Han, be honest, my houseboat's better than your little boat, isn't it? Better than anything you could do? The change was instant, and it was glorious. The benevolent fog burned off, one eyebrow went up, and this tiny old man drew himself to his full nothing of height and said, "Heh, a frog in a well. Watch closely, child, and learn what actual skill looks like." And the sky screen chimed before he'd even finished the sentence. Master Ji Wo has taught player Mu Yun Shan the building technique, Master Builder. 30% less material, 30% more quality, forever, because I'd insulted a grandpa into showing off. He was so pleased with my stunned face that he threw in gifts, bottles of concentrated plant nutrient from his own coat, gold and silver grade, patted my head, and toddled back to his boat glowing with victory. Then, per the essay, he forgot me, completely, within minutes. So I checked the wind, played my card, and his little boat drifted gently back to my raft, where a stranger's banner welcomed him by his secret name, and a delightful young woman he'd never met invited him aboard. "What's your name, lovely adventurer?" "Fruit. Sunsquint. May I have lunch here?" I cooked the same 4 dishes twice in 3 hours for a man who complimented them as if discovering cuisine. The second frog in a well provocation worked even better than the first, because this time, mid-lecture, he decided my raft itself was beneath demonstration standards, and rebuilt it. All of it. He pulled timber from his own storage, black gold wood, deep red with golden flecks, the kind of material that doesn't have a market price because there's no market that's ever seen it. And in an hour of flying planks, my raft became a ship. High prow, sails, a carved rudder, gunnels like a museum piece, and a button that folds the whole thing between ship mode and raft mode with a sound like a magician's cabinet. He taught me iron wall on top, hull resistance tripled, and then stood back, surveyed what he'd done, realized at some dim level that he'd emptied his pockets into a stranger's boat, and departed visibly deflated, the broadcast noting, with what I swear was editorial sympathy, Master Ji Wo left in low spirits, his heart heavy. I felt almost guilty. Almost. I had a family to house. The wind card had 1 use left, and 1,200 points don't grow on politeness, so back he came, third first impression of the day. "What's your name, lovely adventurer?" And by now my crew watched the routine like theater staff. Fruit, lunch. His poor belly was a drum by then, and I actually tried to stall the meal for his own good, and he threatened, cheerfully, to leave if the dishes stopped. Third provocation, third eruption, and this time he taught me the crown jewel, free construction. Blueprints become editable, and the skill auto-corrects your design errors. Then he pressed a 2-story villa blueprint into my hands like a grandfather slipping money into a red envelope, and departed. And an hour later, the district-wide broadcast, with the gravity of a state funeral. Master Ji Wo has developed acute stomach trouble and must end his journey early. 3 forgotten lunches, 1 elderly digestion. Somewhere in the fine print of my conscience there's an entry for this. The district, not knowing the cause, mourned the lost teaching opportunities. Wu Liang mourned hardest of all. Wu Liang spent that entire day mashing his invitation card. The broadcast log tells the story better than I can. Invitation declined. Master is asleep. Invitation declined. Master is too full. Invitation declined. Master is unwell. He invited so many times, the system itself got annoyed and told him in an official announcement that he had no tact. When the master finally, mercifully delegated, he sent the bickering couple in his place, and District 33 gathered around the broadcast like a bonfire. The couple's boat reached Wu Liang's raft in a foul mood. They'd been arguing about each other's exes since open water, and he welcomed them with the full saint treatment. Deep bows, masters this, masters that, and they looked at his humble spread of snacks and asked, in front of him, in the third person, whether this pauper was serious. What followed was an extended hostage situation with meals. They ate his precious purple jade grapes, a rare vine he'd been rationing berry by berry in under a minute, skins and all. They demanded better. He bought dried fruit at panic prices, insufficient. He sacrificed, visibly dying inside, his hoarded stat apple, and G9 slapped it off the table, shrieking that she was allergic to apples, and this was clearly an assassination. He begged my strawberries off me mid-crisis through gritted teeth at extortion rates, and the couple pronounced them barely acceptable and ate every one. Then dinner, 5 dishes, his own good cooking, reviewed as bland, tasteless, inedible. And then the teaching. G8 surveyed the houseboat Wu Liang had rebuilt after the last catastrophe and said, "Tear it down." And Wu Liang, hope destroying his judgment the way it always did, thought, "This is the process. The master will surely rebuild it better, maybe with his own materials like they did for..." And he swung the axe himself, dismantled his own home to its bones, threw the scraps overboard on instruction. "Where's the wood?" said G8, holding out his hand. "Your wood." And out of Wu Liang's dwindling stores rose his final houseboat, built by the master's own hands. Whereupon the broadcast informed the district, with ceremony, that player Wu Liang had learned bad luck possession, buildings that curse their owner for 3 days, even after demolition. And shoddy work, double materials, half quality. And, from G9, as a lady's parting gift, the art of the switcheroo, hide the good parts, use the bad ones, yay. The couple was then seen leaving, quote, humming a happy tune. Wu Liang tore down the freshly cursed structure with his bare hands, threw the haunted lumber into the sea, and slept under open sky, and the chat held a vigil of pure joy. I'd like to say I felt a twinge of sympathy, but I was busy hosting the same couple, who stopped at my ship next, ate a normal meal like normal freeloaders, got publicly scolded by little G23 for overstaying, and taught me creating something from nothing, finish any build while slightly short on materials, and exquisite beauty, aesthetics doubled, before leaving to visit Wu Liang's henchmen with fresh curses, a service I'd requested and tipped for. Same teachers, same day, opposite outcomes. The couple taught based on how you treated them, and the district slowly assembled that theory in public, and Wu Liang had to read it. Oh, the chainsaw child, yes. The demolition fairy herself came for me one morning, and I woke up to the sound of Ching Ching cheerfully welcoming aboard the single most feared entity on the ocean. I sprinted out in my pajamas to physically block a 6-year-old, and we had a genuine standoff, her dimples versus my whip wrapped around her chainsaw, me threatening, and I quote myself with shame, to tell her master, her rolling her eyes and calling my bluff, and it was heading somewhere loud when she took one step sideways and tripped over Bao Bao. The panda cub looked up at her. She looked down at the panda, and the district's most feared contractor dropped a chainsaw bigger than her own body, screamed "Big cat," and dissolved into a puddle of 6-year-old on my deck. She stayed 3 days. She ate like a battalion, extorted meals with the sentence, "Feed me or I'll dismantle something," which we both eventually acknowledged was a formality, and slept in a swing chair with the panda in her arms. She taught me demolition master. Tear down any structure and recover every material like new, negative effects included, purely so I'd stop asking whether she had any skills besides demolition. And when I mentioned my villa blueprint needed 27,000 pieces of wood across 4 elite species that existed nowhere on any market, she scratched her head and said the sentence that reorganized my week. "Oh, that stuff. My little brother knows where that grows. It grows at Grandpa Dadu's place." Of course it did. Of course the lumber for my family's house grew on the private plantation of the dwarf whose treasure I'd stolen twice. Little G49, bribed with a peach and his sister's blessing, took my ship's wheel, and half an hour and 1 stomach lurch of folded space later, we anchored off an island that smelled like a lumber cathedral, Dadu's nursery. Groves of elite white pine, red oak, red sandalwood, and yellow teak, planted in ruler straight rows at identical spacing, pruned and pampered for years, with little benches along the paths for resting between chores. The dwarf wasn't just a hoarder. He was a craftsman raising a forest by hand to build a house for his youngest son. I'm aware of what I did next. We'll get to how I've made peace with it. Reconnaissance first. The clan was away, all of it, at the wedding of Dadu's eldest grandson, an intelligence coup delivered by G23 via her gossiping senior siblings who had crashed the wedding for the free wine. One resident remained, Da-san, the youngest son, a bearded boulder of a man with a slow, sweet mind, left home because his father worried he'd embarrass himself at the party. We watched him potter around his beautiful little courtyard, sighing to himself, over and over, the same sentence. I really want to drink mulberry wine. I didn't have mulberry wine. I had plum wine, a mulberry grove up the path, and no shame whatsoever. Squeezed mulberries, dyed the plum wine deep purple, parked the bottle on a bench along his patrol route, and hid. He found it, sniffed it, wrestled with his conscience for the length of one full breath, drank half the bottle in a single pull, pronounced it delicious, drank the rest, and folded onto the bench like a beach chair. Out cold, snoring in octaves. His beloved saw slid from his hand, and when I picked it up, it looked like nothing. Old, plain, worn smooth, and my first test cut dropped a yellow teak with a 100-fold crit. A disguised treasure, the dwarf hiding his son's gift from thieves inside ugliness. I borrowed it permanently. A woman building a home for 3 portals cannot be choosing her tools ethically. Then I hired the district. The recruitment post was one line, need 100 lumberjacks, bring your own high-grade axe and a summoning card, and the wages did the shouting. 1 raft rating secret worth 20 points, plus 20 elite logs per worker, enough furniture-grade timber to jump a family over the 100-point portal line in 1 shift. Panda sneered publicly that nobody would fall for it, and the applications crashed my message queue while he typed. My squad ran 5 crews of 20, Su Shu, Su Mei, Fang Peng, He Jianbin, and Han Xuan, whose crew asked to transfer out at roughly the same rate his reputation arrived. G49 clapped his hands, and his little boat unfolded into a 1,000-square-meter ferry, and for 9 hours the most exclusive timber reserve on the ocean rang with 100 axes, while the area chat sounded like a lottery office. Grown adults posting photos of red oak like newborns. One man wept openly about his son's portal. I walked the rows with a magic saw, dropping 100-log crits and directing traffic, and against every rule of heists, everyone stayed inside the marked groves, because I'd promised that anyone who wandered would be left for the wildlife, and my reputation by that point did the supervision for me. The clan came home early. Of course they did. Weddings end. Nuan's ears caught the boats before the horizon did, and the evacuation went off like a fire drill, 100 workers pouring onto 49's ferry, my squad sweeping the groves for stragglers, Zhao Ling wrapping my ship in a fog bank with "Welcome, absolutely nowhere" written on it. The clan hit the beach in force, dozens of babus, big ones, small ones, old ones, all built like kegs, all armed, all screaming. And the last thing they saw was a fog bank sliding out to sea. The armory they threw after us, axes, longswords, a hammer or 2, thudded into my hull and deck and stayed there. Maritime salvage law. And that's how I looted a rare-grade axe and a luck-blessed longsword from a hurricane of pure dwarf rage. Han Xuan bought the lucky sword off me before we'd even docked. A man cursed at Chest's nose to pay for luck. The villa went up in 1 minute. I edited the blueprint first. Free construction let me put the whole thing on pillars, so the 2-story plan came out 3 stories. The system, delighted, ruled I'd exceeded the assignment and paid bonus rewards. A dishwasher, a second smart toilet, a garbage processor, a washer-dryer, all fully automatic, all running on nothing, don't ask. I asked G23, and she said you're not at the level where you get to know that, which is the single most ominous sentence a 6-year-old has ever said to me. Deep red walls, white pine trim, blue-green tiles, glass doors, a terrace with 2 staircases. Inside, a living room with an open kitchen, bedrooms with built-in wardrobes, red oak floors against white pine walls, and my whole crew walked it in churchy silence until Xu Mei broke first. This is a luxury villa. This is better than our family's actual villa. And He Jianbin stood in the empty 3rd-floor hall and announced his intention to move in and simply never leave. My rating jumped to 999. I stood on my own 2nd-floor balcony. A woman who had failed to afford an apartment in 14 years of trying looked at my 3-story sea villa and allowed myself 10 entire seconds of feelings before going back to work. But first, because my squad had just spent 9 hours running a felony for me, we celebrated, and the celebration became legend. The boys, and by boys I mean Shu Shu sawing, Han Xuan carving, He Jianbin art directing, spent the afternoon manufacturing a full mahjong set out of elite white pine, every tile hand-cut. We played on the new terrace while skewers smoked on the grill, lamb legs from He Jianbin's stores, my beef, squid off my nets. Mid-game, He Jianbin extorted actual beer out of a trade contact and posted the whole spread to the district channel out of pure peacocking. The channel's response deserves anthologizing. One man counted the dishes out loud in mounting despair. One declared himself deceased from envy, and the Chen Memorial rake was passed to a fresh generation when some newcomer from District 34 posted his own proud dinner, roasted meat with salt, and got asked, gently, by his own district, whether he'd run out of salt or shame. G23 beat all comers at Mahjong within an hour of learning the rules, cackling like a tiny loan shark, and mid-game she looked around the table, at the panda asleep against her leg, at my grandmother's future bedroom, hers before Grandma claimed it, and said, to no one, that this boat was better than home. Then she pretended she hadn't. Demolition fairies have an image to maintain. Then, curtains and furniture. 200 points to go. And while I hung curtains, Wu Liang went to the plantation island and ended himself. He'd wormed his way in through a rule-breaking player during my logging operation, a promise-nothing weasel named Deng Bo, who'd summoned him against my explicit ban, and the two of them had hidden through the evacuation and stayed to poach timber after everyone left. Which put them on the plantation, sawing away, when the clan came home angry, and I'm assembling what happened next from the wanted notice, the chat, and one extremely satisfied Demolition Fairies gossip network, so savor it with me. The clan caught them. Da San personally kicked Wu Liang across a clearing. The district would later count the missing teeth in his selfies, and Deng Bo folded so fast he confessed to crimes nobody had accused him of yet. They were dragged before Dadu himself, and there, kneeling, spitting red, Wu Liang did the one thing he was genuinely world-class at. He talked. Not the trees, my lord. Well, a few trees, but the real thief, the thief of everything, was a woman named Mu Yunshan, and out it came, a whole invented biography of my crimes, folded around the true ones for load-bearing strength. She robs treasures, she robs everyone, she robbed me, and I have sworn to kill her. We're natural allies, arm me and I'll bring you her head. And Dadu, who is mighty and rich and ancient and has the media literacy of a hammer, bought it, bought all of it, armed the man kneeling in his own son's boot prints, a poisoned longsword that drops whatever it cuts, a full stat-boosting gear set, a pinpoint teleport card, an island return token. Go, said the dwarf, giving a stranger his armory on the strength of a sob story. Kill Mu Yunshan within the hour, or I kill you. Which, incidentally, was the second bounty on my head issued that week by someone I'd robbed. My inbox was becoming a genre. Wu Liang had zero intention of fighting me. He'd seen my ship. Instead, he spent his remaining island hours running his actual business model on the softest target ever placed in front of him, Da San, who had a mind like warm bread and had never in his life been flattered. Wu Liang flattered him. Brother 13, that swing was magnificent. Brother 13, show me again. And the giant glowed and cut elite trees for his wonderful new friend by the row, singing while his new friend pocketed the timber and watched the countdown on his own extraction. And then, with minutes left, Wu Liang uncorked the Moutai he'd been saving, coaxed and teased and dared the trusting giant through half a bottle, dragged him unconscious into the trees where the clan wouldn't hear, and put the poisoned sword through his chest. He poured the rest of the liquor down the dying man's throat, an answer, he explained to him, for the kick. He stripped the belt bag, a dwarf-made storage treasure, off the body, and when Dadu arrived howling, seconds too late, Wu Liang stood inside his teleport countdown, informed the most dangerous craftsman on the ocean that his whole family were idiots, kicked the sun one more time at the count of 2, and vanished at 1. Home safe, he posted the stolen arsenal to the district channel with the caption, "See that, you trash?" The mask didn't slip. He threw it into the sea. Weeks of managed sainthood, gone in one gloating evening, because for the first time the math told him reputation paid worse than robbery. He'd made one error of fact and one of judgment. Fact, Dasan survived. His father's hidden charm held his heart together. Judgment, NPCs remember. At midnight, the sky lit up with something none of us had seen, a wanted poster. 3 announcements, ascending. 1. Dadu is furious. The Dadu clan's stance toward all players downgraded from neutral to hostile. Enraged clan members will now pursue on sight. 100,000 people who had never met a Dadu absorbed the news that a family of superpowered blacksmiths now held a species-wide grudge, on Wu Liang's behalf without being consulted. 2. The hidden dungeon, Dadu's treasure, closed indefinitely, and the chat's veterans, who had just pieced together from my results that such a dungeon existed, mourned a fortune they'd learned about and lost in the same minute. Han Xuan's contribution to the thread was 2 words, Babu's Boots, which for him was a poem. 3. The Bounty. For the death of player Wu Liang, a plot of top-grade black gold farmland that matures crops instantly, and one custom-forged rare weapon from Master Dadu's own hands. The district read the reward list the way sharks read blood, and then hit the wall. How do you reach a man on a raft in an ocean where players can't visit each other? He'd summon no one, no access, unkillable by geography, and he knew it, which is why he spent the night in the channel taunting his own bounty hunters. Come and get me, you trash, from the safety of the world's design. Somebody suggested, with full sincerity, asking Wu Liang to summon his own assassins. Somebody else priced the favor. He laughed at all of them, and the laugh was justified against everyone in the district except one person, and I was already reading my mail. Except that G23, official demolition fairy and unofficial member of my crew, owed my pets a favor over some shared venison. My 2 evolved monsters had once given up rank-up meat so her perpetually starving little brother could eat, and children raised by Jiwo pay their debts in hardware. She handed me a pinpoint teleport card. Type in any player's name and appear beside them, the only key to the only lock protecting Wu Liang's life. And then she gave me the market advice on top, free. Don't go yet, she said, feet dangling off my railing, watching me pack weapons. Grandpa Dadu is stingy. First bounties are always lowballs. If nobody collects for a while, he panics and raises it. I know him. I looked at this 6-year-old quoting auction psychology at me and asked how sure she was. She looked personally insulted. So I waited, armed to the teeth, while the district gave up on the bounty as uncollectible, and Wu Liang's taunting got lazier, and sure enough, the sky screen posted an update. Bounty increased. Then again, bounty increased. 2 days of dwarf impatience tripled the pot to 4 plots of black gold land plus the custom weapon, and G23 didn't even say I told you so, which somehow made it worse. Then I typed his name. I materialized on Wu Liang's raft at dusk. He was asleep in a bamboo rocking chair between piles of stolen elite lumber, and I crossed his deck with the dagger already out. This would have been a very short scene, except that I stepped over a fishing net with a baby seal tangled in it, a snow-white dumpling of a creature that took one look at me and started yelling for help at the top of its absurd little lungs. I cut it loose to shut it up. It kept yelling. It yelled him awake. Fine, we did it the loud way. He came up out of the chair fast, credit for reflexes, kicked it backward into my dagger line, rolled to his feet with Dadu's poisoned longsword already drawn, and for exactly 1 heartbeat we stood there, the saint and the swindler, sorting out which of us was which. Mu Yunshan, he said, and there was a whole biography in the way he said it. It really was you. It really was. And then it was 90 seconds. He was good, genuinely trained, and dressed in a dead dwarf prince's arsenal, and none of it mattered, because he was fighting 3 things with different airspeeds. Ching Ching took his face, one shrieking dive after another, claws first, commentary included. Nuan Nuan took his footing, a white blur clipping his knees on geometry he never solved. My arrow took his shoulder, through a gap Ching Ching opened, and the poisoned sword hit my deck, his deck. And when it was over, he was down and finished, and knew it with total clarity, because whatever else Wu Liang was, he could always read a balance sheet. His last play was pure him. He lunged for the rail, for the water, shouting the math as he went. If the fish get the kill, you get nothing. Dadu doesn't pay for accidents. And the sea, which around here is less a swimming pool and more a mouth, took its bite in the 2 seconds before my whip hauled him back aboard, less 1 hand and most of 1 leg. Even then, he negotiated. Wait, I'll follow you. I'll work for you. I know things. I have contacts. I'll do anything. Everything I have is... The man had used crippled teenagers as shields and called it mentorship. He'd talked a slow, sweet giant into a bottle and put a poisoned sword through him for luggage. He'd sold my name to a hammer to buy his own exit. I looked down at the last offer he'd ever make and gave him the only honest review of his career. You wish. And finished it. He stared at my ship as he went, my black gold ship with its villa and its lanterns and its flowering vine moored alongside, and the last expression Wu Liang ever wore was not fear and not hate. It was real estate envy. The loot was an estate. Dadu's stolen gear, elite lumber by the ton, keys, cards, blueprints, a bamboo rocking chair design I kept out of spite, and, noted here for the poetry, a quicksand trap skill book he'd been hauling around unused, because learning it required the basic trapping skill he'd always considered beneath him. I learned it standing over him. Then I dismantled his entire raft with Demolition Master, clean planks, no curses, down to the 4-square-meter starter square the game won't let anyone lose, and sailed home towing the fortune of a man who'd owned 2 districts worth of worship and died with no one to call. The bounty paid out in full, 4 instant harvest fields and a rain check on a custom weapon, redeemable in person from a dwarf who wants me dead, which is a problem for a braver day. District 33 spent the night writing eulogies with punchlines. Shu Fun's read, in its entirety, serves you right. Panda changed his username. Nobody blamed him. And that, at last, left only the number. And the number had gotten cruel. The villa's furniture phase taught me the rating system's personality. A high-grade wooden bed, 5 points. A second one, 5 more. A third, 0, capped. A full elite dining set, 0, wrong room. Every category had a hidden ceiling, and the game wasn't publishing any of them, so the last stretch was archaeology by checkbook. A genuine leather sofa, built from a blueprint Jin Guang had gifted me, sponges courtesy of 3 consecutive crates, points. A gray luxury carpet, points. A bamboo rocking chair from Wu Liang's estate, points. Thank you again, you monster. Automatic appliances, insultingly few points. Apparently the algorithm valued a footstool over a dishwasher, which tells you everything about who wrote it. Around me, the same race ran district-wide, and my people crossed their own lines one by one. Fong Peng hit 100 for his 5-year-old son and kept going anyway, expanding his raft to 500 squares, because, he explained in his longest message on record, a boy needs room to run. Shushu and Shumei cleared 100 without stakes. Their parents were first batch, somewhere, unfound. Tan Long, a stranger to me then, cleared his line on the timber wages from my logging job, a fact he'd repay later at exactly the right moment. Ha Jianbin sat at 500 plus, 2 portals worth, and summoned no one, and when the chat asked, went quiet in a way that money can't fix, and I didn't ask further. Rich families have their own weather. Me, I finished the climb on textiles, 1188 of 1200, deadline sunrise close, and the last discovery was that high-grade double-layer linen curtains, sewn from my own paradise-grown cotton and instant-grown sisal off the black gold fields, were worth 6 points a window. I hung curtains at midnight like a madwoman, 6 points, second set, 6 more, and the panel ticked over while I stood on a chair with a curtain rod in my teeth. 1200. 3 portals. I sewed 1 extra set of curtains that night for Jin Guang, unasked, because his blueprint had carried the finish, and a merchant pays her suppliers. He sent back sisal seeds and, uncharacteristically, no invoice. I sat down on my terrace stairs and cried for about a minute, quietly, where the pets couldn't see, and then went to bed, because in the morning the doors were opening. At 9 sharp, 3 doors made of fog stood on my deck where no doors had been, each waiting for a name. The whole district was doing the same thing at the same time, and the chat that morning was the most human it had ever been. People with 1 portal and 2 children, typing both names into the air to feel how each looked, deleting, retyping. A man choosing between a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old. A woman asking the void which of her parents would forgive her. Somebody's bitter arithmetic. Middle-aged people have elders above and children below, and 1 door between them. And then the game, in its only genuinely merciful announcement to date, changed the shape of the choice. The unsummoned wouldn't die on rafts. They'd be routed to a casual world, safe, dull, fed, with a normal human span of years, and could apply to join the ocean later if their health passed. And the summoned could refuse. Anyone pulled through a door could take 1 look at our life and choose the boring world instead. And children too young to choose would have it chosen for them. Do you understand what that offer was? An out. A clean, guiltless out. Comfort instead of sharks for every family on this sea. The portals opened for 24 hours, and when they closed, the district compared notes, and the refusals were a rounding error. Grandmothers chose the ocean. 16-year-olds chose the ocean. A 1-armed grandfather somewhere in the district chose the ocean, and his son posted about it with 6 exclamation marks and no punctuation otherwise. Given a fork between safety and each other, This entire drowning species picked each other, almost unanimously, and that's the thing the janitors behind the sky screen keep underestimating about us. You can close a palace. You can't make the lamb stop dancing the password. The second batch came through prepared too, in the way of people who'd had 1 hour's notice and a lifetime of love. The chat spent the day cataloging what parents had carried through interdimensional customs: bags of flour, cured meat, frozen dumplings, seeds. One 17-year-old arrived with 7 fully charged phones and no food, and his father's review of him went district viral. And one girl, 18 years old, walked through her father's portal hauling professional diving gear, suits, masks, tanks, fins, lights, and the chat mocked the dead weight for a full day. The game doesn't let you dive, silly girl. Hold that thought too. Her name was Tan Ming Li, and the ocean floor was about to open like a shopping mall. I typed 3 names with shaking hands. My nephew, Mu Tianyu, first. Summoning failed. Mu Tianyu has been claimed by player WW000678. My stomach dropped through the deck. Claimed. Someone had summoned my nephew first, which was impossible. Portals only worked on blood relatives, and everyone who shared blood with that boy was either standing on this raft or dead. Second name, my grandfather. Summoning failed. Claimed by player WW000678. Same player. Same impossible player. Someone with a rating over 500. Someone entitled to summon my family. And my hands were cold as I typed the third name and watched the fog swirl and refuse to fail. Summoning successful. And out of the third door, hauling a burlap sack bigger than herself, with a rake and a brand new shovel tucked under one arm, marched my 70-year-old grandmother. She dropped the sack, looked me over head to toe the way she's done since I was 6, patted the sports bag strapped to her chest, and delivered her opening line, which I will treasure until I die. Yunshan, I brought your computer. My grandmother. Faced with the apocalypse, an hour's notice, and a strict luggage inspection, and her priorities were, in order, seeds from her own garden, every vegetable variety she grows, my old clothes, her 2 changes of clothes, farm tools, and my dead laptop, because her granddaughter can't live without her screen. The interdimensional customs had rejected 2 full sacks of additional supplies. She was still angry about it. And the mystery of the other 2 doors solved itself in one sentence, because when I asked, panicking, where Grandpa and Tianyu were, she said, as if it were nothing, "Oh, they went to your brother." My brother, who died in a plane crash a month before the ocean, whose funeral we held without a body because the sea never gave one back. WW000678. A player strong enough to summon 2 relatives, alive. Somewhere out there, in some district, my brother is alive, and his son walked through a fog door into his arms this morning, and my grandfather went along to supervise, and my grandmother chose my raft because, and I quote, "You were always the one who forgot to eat." I held on to her for a long time. 3 months of overtime, 20 days of ocean, 1 funeral held too early, and she smelled like her kitchen, like the detergent she's used since before I was born, and I stood on the deck of my war-financed villa ship and was, for a minute, 6 years old. She patted my back exactly twice and wriggled free, because there was work to do. There is always work to do. Within the hour, she had inspected the entire ship like a health commissioner. She opened every cabinet. She tested the automatic toilet with deep suspicion and emerged from the bathroom a changed woman. She pronounced my vegetable plots insultingly small. What can you grow on that, girl? She befriended the panda on sight and permanently, side-eyed the talking vine exactly once, and decided at some executive level not to ask. And she located the single piece of stray trash aboard, held it up like a prosecutor, and threw it out, triumphant. The chickens and rabbits, my little deck farm bred from island stock, she claimed as her department on the spot, and the hens, I swear, stood straighter. Then we did stats. Her panel read Strength 8, Agility 7, Constitution 5, and I want you to sit with that. My 70-year-old grandmother spawned into the apocalypse with better base numbers than I did. A lifetime of hauling harvests and chasing chickens into the coop at dusk beats a decade of spreadsheets, and the game just wrote it down. I fed her 3 peaches without explanation and made her pour every point into Constitution, and she ate them commenting that the fruit these days was very fresh. No idea she'd just been buffed like a raid tank. The laptop, for the record, arrived dead, keyboard shedding keys like autumn leaves, fried by the portal. She was devastated. She'd guarded it across dimensions with her body. I told her to wait a few days. I had plans for it, and by then, you can guess the shape of my plans. The days with her aboard reorganized themselves into something I hadn't had since childhood, a household. She cooked with me and outcooked me. She soaked her feet in a basin every evening and narrated the district chat aloud like a radio drama. She learned to work the screen in an afternoon, and her commentary on player disputes was more brutal than anything Ching Ching ever screeched. She tried to mend the big fishing net, found it beneath her standards, and made me commission Han Xuen, consumes it at the workbench in 3 minutes, and earned her permanent approval. A nice, silent boy, so handy. And once, exactly once, she caught me coming back from the practice range with the whip on my wrist and the bow on my shoulder, and looked at me for a long moment and said only, "Eat more." Some worry doesn't fit in words, so it travels as food. Because the ocean wasn't done with us, and the game said so that same afternoon, in 2 lines that reset the entire district's mood. 1. In 7 days, temperatures crash, storms and eruptions begin. Prepare supplies. 2. In 15 days, the first great hunt, 10 districts thrown together in a free-for-all. First batch must participate, second batch may choose. The chat cycled through its stages in an hour. Rage first. Our families just arrived, you monsters. Then dread. The last cold snap killed 29,000 of us, and we were the young, fit batch. What happens to somebody's 68-year-old mother? Then, the strange arithmetic of hope, because a great hunt across 10 districts meant 1 million people on one battlefield, and everyone missing someone started calculating odds. A man with 5 sisters listed them like lottery numbers. A woman typed her husband's name into the void in case the void had seen him. And then, because this district's true religion is logistics, the panic converted into a shopping list. Tier 3 meat toughens a new arrival's body. Islands are surfacing daily. The seafloor is open. Move. And Jinguang's people fanned the fire from every direction because fear is a demand curve, and that man has never missed a market. 10 districts, and my brother was in one of some 1,000 districts out there. But suddenly, every horrible announcement had a silver thread through it, because a big enough meat grinder is also, mathematically, a family reunion, and mine had a rating over 500, and my nephew on his deck. The district shook off the dread the way it always did, by shopping. To help families toughen up before the cold, the game announced, islands would now surface constantly, and, the real headline, ocean exploration was open. Breathing masks, 6 hours of underwater air, deep-sea vests that shrug off pressure, fins, dive lights, harpoons, all of it hidden in the chests of Tier 3 plus beasts. Go earn it. The sea under our rafts, which had spent 3 weeks being a wall with teeth, was suddenly a floor with a bargain bin under it, and the district's mood did a full backflip, and Tan Mingli's mocked luggage became the hottest inventory on the market overnight, her father selling real-world dive kits at prices that would embarrass a casino. My first dive, I did with a rope around my waist and my grandmother holding the other end, which tells you who was actually in charge of my safety protocols. The water-avoiding pearl, we'll get to how I got it in a second, wrapped me in a 3-meter bubble of dry, and I walked down into blue light with schools of little fish parting around the boundary like I was a museum exhibit walking through its own gallery. 10 meters down, the light started dying, and I discovered I'd brought no lamp, because even geniuses forget that the ocean doesn't come with ceiling fixtures, and climbed back up my rope into an audience. Grandma relieved, Panda applauding, Ching Ching asking loudly whether I'd brought anything to eat from down there. First expedition, net yield, 0 loot, 1 lesson, infinite smugness about the bubble. And I, personally, would never need the game's official gear at all because of the seal. The little white thief from Wu Liang's raft had followed me home. It turned out to be less a seal and more a con artist wearing a plush toy. It stole my ocean balls. It stole my dried fish. It stole a flowering piece of Shaoling and wore her as a necklace. And when I demanded tribute, it solemnly traded me a pretty blue bead for a box of shrimp, then stole the shrimp anyway and laughed at me in seal. The bead promptly fell apart in my hands. Glued. The little grifter had sold me a pre-broken bead, spit-glued, and cackled from the water. Except that my turn of fortune blessing rolled around again, and I fed the broken bead into the workbench out of spite, and it came back as a water-avoiding pearl. A legendary one. Wear it, and the sea holds its breath around you, a dry bubble, no pressure, no drowning, walk the bottom like a garden. The seal had scammed me into the single best dive item in the game. I'm not saying it planned that. I'm saying that when it came back around, I paid the shrimp tax with slightly more respect. That same lucky streak turned a rusty rod from Han Xuan's garbage pile into a fine iron harpoon gun, a spring-launched 5-pronged head on 5 meters of flexible steel line, retracts at a button, doubles its damage underwater, and I discovered its trigger by accident while the seal was watching me from the waterline, and the head shot over its little skull close enough to part its fur, and it screamed and clung to the deck edge with both flippers while I apologized through tears of laughter. We understand each other now, the seal and I. It's the mutual respect of two scam artists who've each seen the other work. And the streak's final charge did the thing that made my grandmother's decade. The dead laptop went into the workbench a corpse, keys in a sandwich bag, and came out as something the size of a tablet labeled, by the system, a supercomputer. Infinite storage. Every film, series, opera, and variety show ever made on Earth, indexed, searchable by voice. And a projector function that threw a cinema-sized screen of light across the open deck, adjustable to any size, which means my ship now has the largest movie theater on the planet. Attendance, 1 grandmother, 1 panda, assorted poultry. I queued up her favorite opera the moment I understood what I was holding, and called her out without explanation, and watched my 70-year-old grandmother stop dead in the middle of the deck as the sea lit up with the music she'd hummed over every stove of my childhood. She watched 1 aria. Then she turned it off, declared she wasn't going to waste her days on television when there was work to do, and went to check on the rabbits and hummed the next aria to them from memory. If you want to know what all the points and all the ratings and all the corpses were for, it was that. It was exactly that. I'd love to end there, but the ocean bills for every good day, and it billed me over the next 2 days on a green island in installments. The island surfaced off my bow the same week, and I went ashore with the pet bag loaded, leaving Xiaoling and 2 summoning cards guarding Grandma, who waved me off with a packed lunch like I was going to a school picnic instead of a monster reserve. Islands had a new rule now. 2 parties could land on the same one, and mine came preoccupied. The diving gear girl herself, Tan Ming Li, with her father, Tan Long. The chat had finished assembling their resume by then and lost its mind over it. He was a former national martial arts champion, and she, at 18, was a martial arts champion and a celebrity singer with a voice the fans called heavenly. Genetic lottery, work ethic of a small nation. He'd cleared his portal line cutting timber on my Dadu job, and had already lent me a diving lamp out of gratitude, unprompted, which is how I knew the family before the island. Her father greeted me like a colleague. She greeted me like a fan. Sister Yun Shan, you're my idol. And I did not yet know how much that sentence would cost her. The island was generous all morning. Wild taro by the armful, my grandmother's dumpling plans upgrading in real time. Then a Tier 4 porcupine the size of a car, a rolling siege engine of spikes that snapped my old soft whip like a noodle, tanked my arrows, and died only after a chase through its own burrow network, where my new quicksand traps, Wu Liang's posthumous donation, finally earned their keep, and Ching Ching blinded it into a wall. 20 cuts of Tier 4 meat, every bite worth stat points to a second batch senior. Grandma's soup pot was going to sing. And then Ching Ching found the jackpot. A steaming pool on a hidden cliff terrace, a real hot spring, mineral blue, wrapped in white vapor, with a carved stone dragon crouched at its rim. The system's description read like a spa brochure written by a myth, a spring where a red dragon once bathed, strengthens the body, heals injury, expels toxins. The pool was crystal clear to the pebbled bottom. Empty. I checked. I checked twice, and I still nearly died there, because Tier 5 things don't show up in clear water if they don't want to. The pets got in first, of course. Ching Ching waded belly deep and started a water fight. Nuan Nuan leapt down to join her, and I was up top watching my ridiculous children splash when the water under them turned red and stood up, a python. Tier 5, red-scaled, thick as a tree trunk, venomous, and it had been lying in that crystal pool the whole time, invisible in plain sight, which is a skill I'd like the record to show should be illegal. Its first strike missed Nuan Nuan by a hoof's width. She bounced to the rim, Ching Ching went vertical, and then the whole length of it came out of the pool and up the cliff after us faster than I could finish saying the word run. I want to be honest about this fight, because most of my fights by then had gotten comfortable, and this one was a mugging. My arrows annoyed it. My harpoon gun, the reincarnated garbage rod, tore real wounds in it, and the wounds made it faster. It chased me down the mountain through a forest it demolished in passing. Whole trees snapped by a flick of its tail. And the only reason its first rush didn't end the story was a swift travel card, triple movement speed for 10 minutes. that Fang Pang had pressed on me days earlier, with his entire explanation being 2 words, no need, when I tried to refuse it. That man's gifts have a pattern. They're always exactly the thing that later stands between me and a headstone. My brand new spirit whip, the reincarnation of my broken one, rare grade, with a mode that stiffens into a spear, spent its first day of life being exactly enough to not quite die with. We ran it in relays, bled it with the harpoon's barbs, baited it through my last quicksand trap, and at the very end, on the beach in sight of my own ship, as the speed card's timer died, it stopped running and wrapped me. I'd never been squeezed by something that weighs as much as a delivery truck. There's no technique to report. The coils came around, my arms pinned wrong, the armor creaked, my vision went dark at the edges, and the only reason I'm narrating this is that the python refused to open its mouth to finish me, because its mouth was full. All through the fight, through every wound, it had been carrying something it would not drop, a glowing bead it had stolen from the spring's own core. It was dying of its priorities, squeezing me on a schedule, and into that stalemate waddled the seal. The little con artist had followed my ship from home waters, heard the commotion, and surfaced to watch me be compressed with an expression of neutral commercial interest. I had about half a lung of air, and I spent it on one word: shrimp. The seal considered the offer. Then it inhaled and inflated, a white dumpling swelling into a 3-meter sphere, bounced once on the sand, launched into the sky, and came down on the python's skull like the moon dropping on a noodle stand. The crack echoed off the cliff. The coils went slack, I folded onto the sand wheezing, and the sphere deflated back into a smug little seal that put out its flipper for payment before I'd finished being alive. The system credited me the kill out of what I can only assume was politeness. The bill wasn't done. Nuon Nuon had taken a bite in the melee, 2 fang marks going black on her back, and the next hour was me at the medicine station with shaking hands, crushing herbs into the antidote powder recipe the porcupine's chest had dropped, while my poisoned lamb hallucinated in circles on the deck. For the record, unicorn sheep hallucinations are as follows. She told me with concern that I'd gone crooked. She mounted the outraged seal and demanded it fly, and she informed Ching Ching solemnly, after long study, that she looked like a censored mosaic, unsuitable for children. The antidote took. Ching Ching has not emotionally recovered, and the seal now files Nuon Nuon under natural disasters. The spoils rebuilt my whole household. The python's hide became a crimson dive suit and leggings, thin as breath, poison-resistant, faster in water than the game's official gear, wearable under anything. The spring's core bead was the masterpiece, though it came with a puzzle. Alone, it did nothing. The answer was the carved stone dragon from the pool's rim, which I'd hauled home whole on a hunch, 3 meters of statue over one shoulder, my new strength stat earning its keep, and when I set the bead in the dragon's open mouth, the mouth poured. Endless hot mineral water, self-circulating, self-cleaning, the dragon was the spring's pump and the bead its heart, and the python had killed the whole system by stealing the battery. I built 2 huge wooden tubs on deck, seated the dragon on the big one, and my ship gained a permanent open-air hot spring under the lanterns. The allocation talks nearly caused a second war. Ching Ching claims the big tub by right of discovery, Bao Bao claimed it by right of already being in it, Nuon Nuon ruled the water undignified and then soaked nightly, and the final treaty gave the pets the shallow tub and me and Grandma the deep one, a treaty violated by every signatory within a day. A crate even dealt me a swimsuit for the occasion, whose item description I quote in full because the game was feeling spicy. You saw it too. It's nothing special, right? Extra stats? You're dreaming. Thank you, system. It's purple and has butterflies, and I look fantastic. My grandmother soaks her feet every evening, narrating chat drama over her shoulder like a radio host. There's a word for what my raft turned into that week, and it's the one in this story's title. Not a fortress, a garden home. A little paradise, parked on a hostile sea. And the last repair of that lucky streak deserves its own line in the ledger. The panda earned his keep. Bao Bao's file finally opened when he leveled off Tier 4 meat scraps, and his skill is called Blessed by Good Fortune, plus 30% growth speed to every plant and farm animal within a kilometer. My lazy dumpling is a walking fertility idol. The strawberries surged, the chicks doubled their growth. My grandmother, who does not know the panda is a buff, has concluded that her gardening hands are simply that good, and I will die before correcting her. I went back to that island for one more day before it sank, with He Jianbin and Han Xuan in tow, and it turned into the kind of day that tells you who your people are. He Jianbin hunted a flock of Tier 3 splendid fowls by taking off one boot and gassing them like a war criminal, then offered us the smoked meat and looked genuinely hurt when I declined poultry seasoned with essence of dwarf foot. We found a vein of high-grade white iron behind a cliff cave-in, mined it 3 abreast, and got interrupted by the tan party, whose muscle, a tattooed kid named Guo Shu, had netted Ching Ching on the way in like she was a pretty parrot instead of a proto-phoenix with a rap sheet. She'd already unmade one of his eyes by the time I arrived. I want to be precise about what happened next, because Tan Mingli's face while it happened has stayed with me. I whipped the man twice, took his net, shredded it, and threw it off the cliff, and my teenage fan watched her idol conduct a beating over a bird and visibly refiled me from heroin to something more complicated. She wasn't wrong. Out here, the version of me that people admire and the version that keeps my family breathing are the same animal, and I've stopped apologizing for the overlap. We ended the day on a shared Tier 5 kill, a silver-horned bull the size of a shed that came crashing through the trees with the battered tan party fleeing ahead of it. My ordinary arrows bounced off its hide like compliments. The rapid feather arrow stuck, and its bleed effect did the quiet accounting, while Han Xuan wore the beast down, blade to horn, and I worked the flanks with the spirit whip, 20 minutes of it, and my killing blow made the loot mine by squad law. The chest it dropped handed me a rare-grade silver horn bow blueprint, my faithful perfect bow's future successor, plus enough dive gear to outfit a navy. Even split 3 ways, the day was a fortune, and the watching tan party, who'd politely renounced all claims from the sidelines, revised their entire mental file on me one more time. That's the ocean now. It will still try to kill you before lunch, but it tips. So that's where I am, and where this chapter of The Water closes. 20 days ago, I was asleep on a desk, 4 stats to my name, with a plan to buy an apartment someday if the overtime held out. Tonight, I'm sitting in a hot spring on the deck of a 3-story villa on a black gold ship under red lanterns and a flowering vine, with a phoenix sulking on the roof, a unicorn sheep asleep on a swing chair, a panda snoring in the crook of a beanbag, a seal-shaped extortionist patrolling the waterline, and my grandmother inside picking tomorrow's opera. The man who swore to destroy me fertilized 4 fields I now farm. The dwarf who swore to kill me owes me a custom weapon and doesn't know I plan to collect. And out there, past 10 districts worth of dark water, a player named WW000678 is tucking my nephew into bed, not knowing his little sister is coming to find him with a fleet, a phoenix, and 15 days to sharpen everything she owns. The sea says the great hunt starts soon. Honestly, so do I.